The Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. It's time for another edition of the King's Speech. I'm happy to welcome Tom King back to Word Balloon. And everybody, thanks a lot. You know, last week I had a bunch of shows planned, and everybody had to postpone on me. So we did a lot of reruns last week for Thanksgiving weekend. But we're back with live shows. We got a couple others planned for this week. So thank you for your patience. But, you know, honestly, Tom, I released Eric Shanauer and a couple conversations with Scotty Young, given all the Wicked hoopla.
Sure.
And they talked about their work on the Oz world and everything. And I kind of in the same way that I am with horror, I'm not like I have no interest in seeing Wicked in the theater. I'll see it when it's streaming or on cable or whatever. But I respect the phenomena and certainly the fandom that goes more than 100 years. And people kind of forget that being an Oz fan is just as nerdy as being a Star Trek or a Star Wars fan or whatever.
I have many thoughts on this. Let us return to it. But before we get there, Mr. John Suntress, who I am a huge fan of, I've been listening to your podcast, one of the great voices in comics, one of the people that floats this entire industry. Happy fucking birthday, you goddamn mensch. I'm so proud to be your friend.
Well, me too, man.
So proud to have to be on your show. And I thank you for all the years of content, and thank you for being a wonderful human being.
Thank you. And truly, I always feel like George Bailey every year on birthday, thanks to social media. And I literally get a couple hundred birthday wishes between all the different social media platforms. So that means a lot, everybody. Thank you. And people are saying it here, and that's very nice. And I thank you for that. And actual Dracula, or no, it's, pardon me, it's not actual Dracula. It's, Carlos, I already love this. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, Carlos. That's great, man. And also a word from Synchro's Shadow Advanced. He's like, Tom, I adore your work. I literally use some of Tom's comics for teaching and grad work, but I wish you could do these streams earlier in the day or on a weekend. I got to teach tomorrow. I hear you, man. You know, Tom's got a family. And I don't want to impede on family time.
What's up with the family? What is? Look, my oldest is 15. We're like 2 years away from him. Then I got a 14-year-old, and they'll be out of the house, and we'll be doing this, John, any time of the day. You know, I still have the one left, but you know, the third one, that's the one you let go, right?
Exactly.
You're on your own, kid. You're on your own. Good luck with it.
Here's a pack of cigarettes and a fifth of gin. You're on your own, kid. Good luck.
Yeah, that's old school. Well, more than my father ever gave me. I'll tell you that much.
Hilarious.
Fifth of gin. I got a bottle. That's it.
Oh man. We got a lot of DC stuff to talk about, but I also want to give you a chance because isn't Wyndham wrapping up or whatever?
But let me talk about. I want to talk about your Wizard of Oz thing, which you raised, and I didn't respond to. Which is, first of all, I think Scotty Young's work on Shanauer should get all the credit too. I mean, he's one of the most brilliant writers of his generation. But Scotty Young's work on those goddamn books is just the height of comic book cartooning. I think they're utter masterpieces. I think at the time I have a page that I bought from him at C2E2 and still have it up on my wall. I just think they're wonderful, beautiful comics. And I just gave them to my aforementioned 10-year-old, and he whipped through them and loved them. So they're still hold up today for all ages. And I just think if you haven't read those Scotty Young Oz books, they are fantastic.
And I thought it was so interesting for Scotty at that moment in his career, because he was really getting traction at Marvel and starting to do more, not only interiors and a lot of the 616 stuff, but he was also writing. And it was like, yeah, but this opportunity came up to do the Oz books with Eric Schanauer. And he's like, I'm going for it. And he goes, it's going to take a long time. And it took 6 years, but it is so worth it. And I really think his art evolved as he was doing that stuff, and obviously informed a lot of the ideas he brought to I Hate Fairyland as well at Image, which is such a great series. So no, I mean, honestly, Scotty's got balls of steel. And I've always said that about him. He is not afraid. He listens to his own instincts, and it would have been very smart of him to stay, because he probably would have gotten jobs in the X-Men world and other big books and stuff. And it's like, nah, you know something, I'm going to do this. And I think it's a perennial that will always be there for him, for newer generations to get into when they're getting into Scotty stuff. And Schanauer, obviously massive Oz expert himself. Also, I didn't realize this. I mean, I knew working with Scotty, and that's when I talked to him. But I guess in the 80s, on his own, he wrote and drew Oz graphic novels himself, Eric Schanauer. So.
I say this as someone who thinks Scotty's one of the real shining lights of our industry, who has done absolutely amazing work and is a personal friend and a person I enjoy hanging out with, and who is just a very cool dude, obviously. At the time, when the Oz books came out, I hated Scotty Young.
Why?
Because this is some 20-year-old beef, but I'm going to fucking throw it out there.
Talk to me.
Because if anyone understands, John, it's you and me, because we are old enough to remember 20 years ago.
Sure.
Going back to the original Podfathers, of which John Suntress happens to be one of them. There was a comic podcast called Around Comics.
Sure.
Which was my favorite comic podcast. And I loved it. I still think it's one of the heights of me. It got me back into comics. I loved it. It fell apart faster than the other sort of Podfather comics, and I ended up being sort of an fanboy. But I started with Around Comics. And John's obviously word balloon the whole time. And you, John, first time I got to your podcast, you guested on that podcast. You guys would go to like a store and talk, like the
yes,
four of you.
Yes.
This is 06. We're old.
Yeah, you're right.
And so that's how I found your podcast, was through them, because I loved it. It was Chris and Tom and Sal were the hosts.
Absolutely.
And then flash forward a few years later. I'm working at the agency in DC, so I have a commute, and I would listen to Around Comics as sort of my downwind. And Scotty joined the podcast as a fourth member.
Yes.
And to me, it was like Oliver joining the Brady Bunch. It was the Jump the Shark.
Wow.
I was dramatic. You know what podcasts they become your family. You rely on them for comfort, and there's a pattern to them, and you like the way John always introduces himself at the beginning and how he always talks about these. That's what you go to podcasts for. They're like what sitcoms used to be to us. It's the comfort of it. And here was someone different. And not only that, what I liked about Around Comics, and if you know Chris Niesman at all, or Tom or Sal, they were very nerdy. They were nerds, and they were proud of being nerds. And when I was a kid, you were kind of ashamed of being a nerd. And Scotty Young went on, and Scotty Young is so many things, but he's cool. Scotty Young is cool. That dude, to this day, 20 years later, he's still cool. And I was like, who is this cool motherfucker on my nerd show? I was like, this does not fit.
Wow.
The whole thing. And so I was very pissed at him. I was mad at him personally. He did a great job in the show, I'm sure. This has nothing to do with Scotty. It's all my own issues.
All right. And
so when obviously he'd done some of the New Warrior stuff. And so when the Oz books came out, I was like, fuck this guy. Fuck this cool motherfucker. Comes on my face. And I opened these books, and they're brilliant. And I was like, oh, fuck him. He's even good at what he does. He's so cool. So yes, at the time, I loved them despite the fact that I hated Scotty.
There's one of our listeners had his iPhone out and shot video of me and Chris Niesman of Around Comics having a heated discussion when Marvel, what was the status quo? The Young Guns. It was no. It was the Architects. It wasn't the Young Guns. But Marvel decided to showcase a bunch of their creators as the Architects, their creators of the moment. And Chris, being a massive Marvel zombie, and I will use your words, and I agree, and I think we were both using them in a pleasant way and a favorable way. Uber nerd is like, how dare Marvel call these young idiots the architects? Stan Lee is an architect. Jack Kirby is an architect. He goes, I'll even go with, John and Sal Buscema and others. And he goes, these guys, no, they're flavor of the month. And I'm like, Chris, it's marketing. It's harmless. I'm like,
conversations that drove me home.
And he's like, no, that will not stand. And it is the funniest
that kind of nerd passion. That's
this funniest 1 minute of us just going tooth and nail about this. And another great around comics moment that I always loved, and even the store owner agreed with me and stuff over at Dark Tower, which is still an excellent comic book store here in Chicago on the north side of the city. We were talking about when the Green Hornet TV show was on, and this is before MeTV and the fact that the reruns are on. Now, granted, they're on at 4:00 in the morning on Sunday morning, my time. So it's 5 a.m. your time, Tom, and 2 a.m. on the West Coast. But they run the whole show. They run the full season, and the guys are like, well, it was a comedy just like Batman, and I'm like, oh no, it was a serious show, and they're like, you're nuts. And even Mark, the owner of Dark Tower, is like, guys, he's like, guys, John and I actually watched the show. No, they played it straight on Green Hornet. Batman was the comedy. And when I'm like, on the crossover, of course, and that only happened on Batman, but the two-parter that the Green Hornet and Kato show up, sure, that's a comedy. But no, and it's interesting to watch because it's the same producers. It's William Dozier who produced the Batman Adam West show. And it's a great show. And, of course, it introduced Bruce Lee to us all, and we fell in love with him immediately. But it's interesting. I don't know. But, yeah, that was one of my favorite. That and we did the 24-hour podcast with
I remember that, yeah.
Mike Norton and Tim Seeley involved, and Scotty, too. And Scotty's wife, Casey, brought her guitar. Crank, absolutely, Chris Crank. And Casey brought her a guitar and for like an hour sang songs. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And that was like 2008. And that's why a couple of years ago, someone's like, we're going to do something that's never been done before, a 24-hour podcast. And I'm like, yeah, 2008. You're good people, but I'm sorry. Hey, Magellan, bad news. Columbus, we already discovered America. I don't know how to break it to you. Anyway, too damn fun.
Comic book people put our flag down early on mediums. Like, I feel like as soon as there were websites, there were comic nerd websites. As soon as there were forums, there were comic nerd forums. I feel like we were on Twitter first, and now we all just got up and moved to Blue Sky like 2 weeks ago, and now Blue Sky is booming. Like where we go, people, it's. I don't think people come for us. We're just we get the trends first. It's a nice thing.
No, absolutely, and it's funny. I am on Blue Sky, and I'm trying to post more there. For now, I'm still on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. But I keep telling people, I'm like, my Aunt Margot grew up and lived in this really what became a very rough part of the South Side of Chicago. But when she was younger, and I mean, the woman, went back to the 30s and stuff, it was a nice neighborhood and everything. And her attitude as the neighborhood got lousy was like, I was here first. Screw these people. I'm not moving. And so that's kind of how I feel until I get, and we don't have to go into politic propaganda, but until it's really like shoved in my face, I'm still going to be at X. And but I am going to be at Blue Sky as well. And I certainly, have been posting at both. I wish I had like Hootsuite or that whatever a good free app is where you can really post on multiple, platforms at the same time. But that's me.
Yeah, I mean, X isn't, or Twitter, whatever. What I want to get out of the experience of being on it, I get more from Blue Sky than Twitter right now. I mean, and mostly that's because the comic book community went over there. So if I have 2 minutes, I was about to say I'm in line in a bank. When was the last time I waited in line at a bank? 1997. If I'm in line to get some sweet greens for a salad, I need 2 seconds to look at my phone, and I don't want to just look at like the world burning down, but I want to look at, oh man, here's an argument over whether the Green Hornet was serious or comedy. Like, that's more interesting to me at this point in my life. So everything I need, I get out of Blue Sky now. So I don't know. Maybe it'll change tomorrow, but that's where it is today. I'll be listening to this in a year and be like, God damn, Tom, what are you thinking?
Lego Monster 21 says, I don't have Blue Sky or Twitter. I think the one I will go to is Threads. I'm at Threads as well.
Yeah, I find Threads, their algorithms is a little weird. I'm on there too, but mostly I do my Instagram posts into Threads. So this is social media talk with Tom and John.
Yeah. Again, you'll forgive me, but I figured I'd indulge in we mentioned Around Comics, and they're great guys, and I'm still friends with them, and I always wish them well.
The Around Comics story I like to. Because this is also the Chris Niesman hour. Chris famous for us 7 people, loved Greg Rucka more than he loved Oxygen. Like if he had to choose Oxygen or Rucka, he'd go Rucka. And,
True.
And so I was overseas doing counterterrorism stuff on the Pak-Afghan border, and they were reviewing one of Rucka's CIA books, and Rucka was talking about like, this is how the CIA really is. Chris is like, really? He's like, yes, I have sources. This is what it's really like. And I had the book and I'm reading through it and I was like, this is not anything like my experience. And I was like, is there another CIA? Does Rucka know about the real CIA? Was I fool? Am I like Dan? Am I in Spies Like Us? Am I Dan Aykroyd? Am I in what is it? What's the Elaine, the Ishtar, where I'm the distraction spies? Which is that what I am? Is that I had this thought? I was like, Chris even and Rucka know more about this situation than I do. So, anyways, that's
interesting. I hear you, man.
But back in the war story, those are my war stories. They're all idiot and they involve comic book collectors.
Brian Salazar, one of the Around Comics guys, also a massive Greg Rucka fan, and I would feel bad if he heard us and it's like, hey, wait a minute, man, I was just as big, and Brubaker as well. No, they
turned me on to Rucka's work, and I've never turned back because he's fucking amazing.
Well, and they turned me on John Hickman. I hadn't heard of John before. They're like, we're talking to this guy John Hickman. He's got a thing called the Nightly News, and I'm like, well, I'm in the media. I'm very curious about his comic, and thankfully that started my friendship with John. So yeah, crazy stuff, man.
I remember, I write comics for a living, and I remember Hickman writing into your show when you were doing a Bendis tapes and being like, what do the ... dots mean as opposed to dashes in dialogue? And Bendis slowly explaining, like a ... is when you kind of fade out and you mumble a little bit at the end, and a dash is an abrupt cut. And I still to this day use the ... dash. I learned from Hickman asking Bendis a question on Word Balloon 18 years ago or whatever.
I love that. Oh my God. See, honestly, man, it's moments like that I forget. And thank God for viewers and listeners who are like, well, don't you remember when you did X? And it's like, no, but that sounds great. And especially given, all right, everybody, it's my birthday. I'll say it. And also it will force me to get off my ass and finish the damn thing. Next year, I intend to release a Word Balloon book.
My goodness.
I've been transcribing interviews.
Whenever it happens.
And I know. And hey, man, as some of my friends know, I've been thinking about a book literally since like 2008 or 9.
Like walking halfway to the wall. You never get there, man. There's always another slice.
Well, and you'll forgive me, but it's like, but I am making the show, so it's not like I'm completely lazy.
I'm slacker. You completely lazy. Well, I want to motivate you because I want to read this book.
Tom, I hear you. Honestly, I'll even go further and let everybody in on. I think because truly, I have very good friends that aren't in our sphere and are like, do you have enough material for a book? And I'm like, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I got like 10 books if I really wanted to sit down and do it. Plus, 100%. I continue to do interviews all the time. But what I want to focus on is either the last 20 years or the last 25 years, and maybe go back to 2000. And because of all the changes that have happened in this period and the significant creators of the last 20 to 25 years, I think Tom King might be involved with that. But truly, like, because how many, and listen, I love comic history books, and I've had my share of great interviews with Silver Age and Bronze Age creators. And certainly that book will someday, hit the atmosphere if all, knock on wood, goes well with my plans. But it's like, nobody really talks about Kelly Thompson or Ram V or Tom, I know Tom is in Paul Kupperberg's recent book of interviews, and I forget
all
if it's
I do is talk about Ram V. You should see my wife; she gets bored of it. She's like, Ram again.
Best
Don't
hair in the
pick up the children.
Best hair in the comic book business. That guy, He's got for a man,
and he's got a new Gods book coming out, and you should buy it because it is brilliant.
He's
as someone who has done some new Gods work himself, I couldn't be more excited about this book.
Quite agree.
That's the right person. And he's been working on this for a long time. I love his pitch. I love his approach. He's going to kill this book. Buy the new Gods book by Rumby.
I'm looking at comments because people are chatting along. And hey, everybody, really, it means a lot that you're coming out.
Check along, come out, ask me questions, ask me anything.
Michael says he doesn't
watch me say absolutely nothing about language.
He doesn't see my book as a book. He'd like to see it more as a musical. I could do that.
I'm in for the musical.
And Bob Harrison, another fine podcaster.
Oh, happy birthday! Well, Bob's an old friend.
Pop culture hound. I hope I'm saying it right, Bob. I hope so. I apologize if I'm Pop Culture Squad. Yes. All right. And there you go. Yeah, Zach, I've listened to those Bendis tapes so many times.
Every time I upload your podcast and I see a part 1, part 2 Bendis, like, well, there's 3 hours of my life I don't have to worry about. My dog's getting an extra long walk. She's very excited about this moment.
Let's see. Oh, Brock's Basement. Ram V is amazing. That guy's fantastic. Yes, pre-order New Gods indeed. Ram and I have had the pre-order conversation already about New Gods. You should check it out if you didn't hear it. It is on the Word Balloon Library.
That's nice. People, we say pre-order all the time, and I feel like people don't even know what a pre-order is. Pre-order is just when you buy your comics at the thing. Just say to the a man or woman who's selling you that book, hey, I'd like to get that New Gods book. Like, that's all pre-order is. It's not like a big formal sort of thing. I mean, some stores have you can online read, but it's just communicating to your store that you want something. That's all. If a creator says I want you to pre-order my book, that's all they're looking for. Just you communicating to your store.
Okay, now I'm gonna get into, before we get into the new stuff, I'm gonna acknowledge a couple of comments on some of your older stuff here that I think are interesting. Patrick wants to know, curious about your postmortem on your series for Boom, Animal Pound, especially after this election.
Oh, that's a heavy book. That's a heavy topic. That's hard to. We're here to have fun and talk about comics.
Yeah. But Animal Pound in general.
My postmortem on it, I think it's one of the best things I've ever written. I absolutely adore. I think Peter Gross killed it. He went above and beyond what I thought he would. I thought he would hit the moon, and he hit Saturn. And I think it's a beautifully drawn book. At the time when I was writing it, I was like, this book might not be relevant. That's not a fear. I was like, oh, it's a kind of a win-win situation. And now I feel parts of it are more prescient than I wish they were. And I just posted this, but I wish that book had a happy ending. It doesn't. Someone suggested a fantastic happy ending where I could just done like one tweak. And I said to my wife, I was like, I should have done that and just made a piece of hope. And she's like, that book's not about hope. And I read a lot of books that are about hope. So if you don't want to read that one, there's 30 other books on my shelf that'll give you happiness at the end. That one is, if you've read Animal Farm does not have a happy ending. Neither does this. That is a book meant to challenge you. It's a book meant to be read in middle schools and high schools and colleges. It's a symbolic book for the rise of fascism from a certain kind of politics. And I think it's one of the best things ever done.
I agree. You stuck the landing, man. No, that was a great miniseries, and I really enjoyed it. And if you are looking for something light, Michael suggests he just read Superman Up in the Sky. Loved how it all tied together in the end. The saving of one life led to the saving of all our lives.
Yes, that's a much better thing to talk about at this time. Who wants to talk about the heaviness?
I hear you, man. Yeah, that's
4 months from now. You'll be ready. When the trade comes out in March, I'll be pushing that book, and we'll talk about heaviness. Let's talk about Superman Up in the Sky, a book and they are reprinting in time for the movie. There's going to be that book's been out of print for a long time, and they're doing a deluxe hardcover. Andy did a whole new cover, which I've already seen, which is gorgeous. Andy Kubert, the genius who drew that book, the comic book legend.
Yep.
And I'm so glad that book's out there. That book exists because of a Bendis thing where DiDio, our old friend Dan DiDio, former editor-in-chief of DC Comics, came up to me at a con here in Washington, D.C., and said, I got this Walmart deal. They're going to stock our books at Walmart. We're going to sell 400,000 copies of each book because there's. I was like, that sounds great. He's like, I want you to do Batman. Bendis will do Superman. And at the time, I was writing Batman, double ship. And I was like, can I please do Superman and Bendis? I was like, can I just have a break from Gotham City? And he's like, well, why not? So that book was just literally an aside at the lunch pitch. And that's how Bendis got what I consider to be his classic work with his Walmart Batman book.
Batman Legacy that he did with Dragotta, right?
Yeah, with Dragotta. Yeah,
Nick Dragotta. Yeah. It's
a gorgeous book. And super fun. And then I got to do this Superman Sky with Andy Kubert. And the point of that book was just, what if I never got to write Superman again? Which, in all honesty, I haven't. So I was right. And to just do everything I wanted to do in a Superman book in one book. And so you get a classic Lois Lane story. You get a classic sort of sci-fi story. I did the Flash race. I did one where he travels back in time and reads Sergeant Rock. Because if you're with a Kubert, you got to do Sergeant Rock. And so we went all over it. And the whole thing was just to say why Superman is awesome. And I think by that last page, you know it. So
the chat is correcting me on First of all, it's Batman Universe, not Batman Legacy.
How dare you?
Secondly,
at least you had a guess at the title. I just knew it was Walmart Batman.
Yeah, it was Walmart Batman, but also shame on me, and I do this all the time.
Not Nick Dragotta. It
was Darrington. Yeah, it was Nick Darrington.
And I did the covers for Mr. Miracle, so good job, me.
Nick, I'm so sorry, and Dragotta, I'm sorry. I truly
I'm sorry too. We're old men. John's now technically older, but we're both old.
I was always technically older, but yeah, you're right. Now I'm even older. But no, you're right about that. Yeah, man, exactly, Tamir. Superman in a boxing match? Enough said, indeed.
But the producer of the Green Arrow, fucking Green Hornet.
I do, actually. That's right. Yes, as I said before, and now I'm blanking. Same guy who did Batman. Yeah. He, by the way, he's the narrator. He's William Dozier. Dozier. Can it be that the dynamic duo, that great delivery?
He was the bad guy in Ghostbusters too.
But wait, the worst is yet to come.
Voice, that classic voice that ruined comics until this day. That I still have to pitch comics, and people are like,
Zap Pow Bang. Yeah, exactly.
Comics aren't just for kids.
I understand. That's funny. Michael wants to know if you ever read the DC Presents number 10, where Superman met Sergeant Rock.
I must have. Yes, I believe I do. I did read that, and I've. What sticks out in my mind is the more famous Brave and the Bold that Haney did, where he did Batman meet Sergeant Rock, and they have sort of this kind of shootout in a mausoleum. My head is telling me at the very end.
I think you're right.
So yeah, that kind of sticks out more for me. But yeah, I love the DC Comics Presents. So
and Brave and Bold with the Brave and Bold Sergeant Rock. Yeah, and also because it was it was in modern day. So it was like senior citizen Sergeant Rock teaming up with Batman, and that great Jim Aparo art and everything. Oh no, I was a big fan of DC Presents and Brave and Bold because those team up books were great. And it's weird. There really isn't World's Finest keeps having other heroes pop up that Mark's doing and everything, but there really isn't a Batman team up book or a Superman team up book like there was in the day.
They don't have those team up books anymore. I mean, obviously, 2-in-1 is one of my favorite comics of all time.
100% with the
whole
Thing.
Run with Thing with
Ron
Wilson on art.
Ron Wilson, yes, so good. Well,
first sketch I ever got in my life, or first comic book art I ever got was Ron Wilson.
Wow!
It was like 2008. I didn't go to cons as a kid, but I went to a con as an adult, and I sat across. Ron Wilson drew my top 5 comic from which is issue annual number 7, the famous annual where Thing is in the boxing match with the Challenger.
Yes.
And I came up to fanboy about him of that issue. And while I was fanboying, he was sketching a Thing. And at the end, he's like $40, and he just scanned it to me. And I was like, 40, of course, yes. And I as I'm talking to you, I can look up and see it. It's got that Ron. I hadn't put a dated or time, but it's got it, and it still sits above my desk. It's still brilliant.
Before
$40 I ever spent.
Before Sketches prices got And listen, I'm glad. I want the artists to make a decent amount of money for what they're doing. But I know when I first started collecting commission sketches, Mike Kaluta on a comic backboard with a Bic thin tip pen drew this amazing shadow for me, Mike Kaluta, and I'm like, how much? And he goes, how much do you want to pay me? And I'm like, well, I don't want to insult you, man. I'm like, because literally it was like one of my first buys, and he's like, well, we'll throw out a number. And I said, $40? And he's like, $40 is very nice, John. Thank you. And I'm like, okay. And I still have it. And really, man, no, I got like my blade that I have that Gene Colan did was only $100. I mean, I've got some great. In fact, I always tell my sister, God forbid, should I pass away, I'm like, listen, I have art that actually is worth something. Don't just say, well, this is comic book stuff. Who cares? I mean, I love my sister, but she really doesn't get it. My nephews get it. And I'm
glad you're telling me this because that's the first call I'm making. That comic book stuff's worth nothing. Let me go through it. I'll tell you what's good and what's not.
I would imagine with your collection, you've got everything is documented, what you have and everything, I would think.
Oh, you'd imagine.
Well, oh God.
I just got a huge,
Nick James
expensive piece delivered today, and I love it.
Nick James, first sketch I ever got was George Perez's Nightwing, one of my first most prized possessions, $50. Yep, exactly. And Cosmos says, thank you very much for the work, Tom. I wouldn't be reading at all without your Wonder Woman run. That's amazing.
Worked on Wonder Woman just today.
Excellent. And
hey, can't believe I committed to 100 issues. So many issues. Oh my God.
Have you really? Is it like your Batman plan? Are you going to do 100?
Yeah, they're welcome to get me out. Yeah, if they let me, obviously.
That's great. Yeah, Holy shit!
I'm committed to keep going. We'll see how far Daniel's coming with me. So far, he's happy. I don't know how I got this A-list artist to keep going, but he's happy and he's rolling. So me and Daniel are going.
Well, it's a great story, man. And here's the most recent cover.
Oh my God, look at that cover. I know this is probably, I listen to the podcast on my headphones, so you can't see, but this is the cover to 15, and it's just, it's nothing. It's simple. It's Wonder Woman staring straight ahead. But obviously this is the start of the new arc called Fury, and you can see it in her face. You can see that we are, we're Wolverine underneath the club, it's time to go. Like, she's pissed.
Well, and understandably so. And I would imagine that it's okay because it's certainly been in the comic news. And you might want to reach back, everybody, although it's a key issue of this modern era right now. But you may want to go back to Wonder Woman 14 and find the death of Steve Trevor.
The death of Steve Trevor, who appears in the next issue. So he wasn't that dead.
Well, yeah. Well, it's mythology. So, and that, by the way, wonderful, very touching personal scene. And Tom, in your own way, and in this story, and there are bigger things going on, but is this kind of your way of saying this is why Steve Trevor matters in Wonder Woman's life?
100%. I mean, I had put in because I knew 14 was going to be our big issue, was our all-in tie-in issue. It was oversized. It was 30 pages, and I knew. Look, I knew Absolute Batman was coming. I knew Absolute Superman was coming. I knew Absolute Wonder Woman. Like those were big books by big creators. I was like, if we don't do something big, what's the point? And so when I first sat down to write it, I was like, what's the most challenging thing I can do? And I just put in my document, I was like, what is the point of Steve Trevor? And that stayed as the title of the book until it launched. That's the title, because that's what that issue was about. Why is Steve Trevor essential to Wonder Woman? That's a question at the heart of the book. It answered itself, because people were passionate about his death, passionate about him coming back, passionate about the relationship in a way that I think you wouldn't expect from Steve Trevor, who's been around for 80 years. Let's not. And for most of those years,
since the first issue,
fairly milquetoast. He was fairly no one was like, oh, my favorite superheroes are Batman, Superman, and Steve Trevor. Like, that wasn't. He wasn't on the list, Like, he was like a little bit after Kite Man on the list, like. So to see the passion the fans have for this, and the love they're showing for that storyline, in some postmodern way, the issue proved its own point, which I think is a wonderful way that fans and the creator interact together to create something even bigger and cooler.
I'm with you, man. Roberts 100 says Wonder Woman is so hard to tackle for so many. Even many creators say she's one of the hardest to tackle for a run. Well, it's interesting. People say that
100%.
Same thing.
Yes, very much so. I couldn't agree more.
Okay,
I think she is hard. As someone who's written a lot of Batman and has written some Superman, she of the Trinity, she is the hardest of the three to write.
Michael says that Lyle Wagner is the Steve Trevor. Well, and I don't know, and
Chris Pine. I don't know. Chris Pine's very Steve Trevor.
Yeah, I think he's and also they give him more to do. I had no idea, and I saw some YouTube video where they claimed that Lyle Wagner kind of resented the limited role he had on the Linda Carter show, and he's like, I should be doing more. And it's whatever. I mean, again, I understand, but the show was called Wonder Woman.
Wagner did not know what the point of Steve Trevor was.
There you go. Oh, this is interesting. RP Chapman 92 wants to know: have you ever considered a Steve Trevor mini written by you in the vein of other books you've done, like Human Target? Well, certainly we've seen him with Argus and acting on his own independently within DC Universe stories.
I mean, it doesn't particularly spark anything in me. But I think any character is worthy of anything. As I've always said, I think you could do incredible stuff with him. I would say I'd rather do a Lois Lane series or a Catwoman series, but I've been but yeah, I don't know, Steve Trevor mini. I think it could be cool. I wouldn't say it's the top of my list, but I think there's coolness there.
Synchro Shadow beat me to it. Synchro Shadow Advanced. He says King snapped Alfred's neck, then he shot Steve Trevor. Next is Lois Lane. No, I don't think.
Wait a second. I know what the SATs are. I think you're saying something about Alfred and Batman. There's some this to that and that and that.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
I was like, oh, that's nice.
This is interesting.
Poor Alfred. Who knew he lasted this long? I cannot believe Alfred is still dead. It boggles my mind.
Well, is there? There is some sort of reboot coming up, right? Next year.
I thought they've teased. Neither confirm or nor deny.
Okay, because I thought they've teased it, and certainly we've seen enough Batman in the past stories while Alfred is currently dead, mostly dead.
It's another thing I can't believe that they're having written the Batman #1 of the current Batman run. I cannot believe they're up past 150. I did not expect it to go this long. But that also blows my mind.
I hear you, man. But I'm loving the Wonder Woman story. The Sovereign is fascinating, and
he is. He's such an asshole. But and he's again another guy who's hard to write. I sit down to write Wonder Woman. It's because I have to write his voice because he has all the captions are in his voice, and he talks in this high fluting way, and he's using these like 5-syllable words. And yeah, it's very it's like Lex Luthor, but like old timey Lex Luthor. And he also uses the royal we, which fucks me up so much. He never says I, he's always we and us and our instead of my. And the copy editors are always like, you missed one. I was like, fuck, it's hard to get it. He is just getting his voice right takes so long at each issue. But he's great because it's wonderful to have a story told by the enemy, having already been defeated. A book that's about Wonder Woman because has these ways of getting these backhanded compliments that I very much enjoy. That lets me get into the character and lets you sort of describe what's awesome about him. And he has a little bit of poetry to him, so I can kind of do these like a little over the top poetry moments. So he's fun, but he's tough. Every time I sit down to write, I was like, why did I pick this guy to be my narrator? I'm like, I couldn't have just picked like some staccato Hemingway guy to be my just on these like simple little sentences.
Should we catch people up on a description of the backstory for the Sovereign in your story?
Yes. So for people who are catching up to Wonder Woman, we are now issue 15 just came out. 14 was a big jumping off point. 15 is a new jumping off point. This is the start of a new arc. But we started with #1. The first 2 trades are out. Now they have beautiful art. We were nominated for an Eisner for Best Series. This is a good book. Jump on board, get in. It's a celebration of Wonder Woman with perfect art. And the idea behind the Sovereign is that America has had a secret king with a lasso of lies who's been manipulating the entire system in his favor since the beginning of time. And the Sovereign is the inheritor to that throne. and for reasons that will be revealed in the next issue of Wonder Woman, which I don't, in the backup to the next issue, he has a dislike for women, and he has a dislike for Amazons, and he's banned all Amazons for the country, which started a fight between him and Wonder Woman, which then became very personal because he does not like that Wonder Woman, he cannot defeat Wonder Woman despite all that he's done, and it's sort of the stakes are rising. It became more and more personal until finally he killed Steve just to give her some pain, basically. And you know what? Diana did not take that well. She was not a fan of that move. And he is going to live to regret it. And that's what our arc is about. For people John and I know obviously the second arc being, or the third arc being Fury, is a pun that John and I get because the book is also about Wonder Woman's daughter, as this is a story being told. It's an origin story of Wonder Woman's daughter, and the Earth 2 Wonder Woman daughter's name was Fury. So that's a shout out to all my super nerds who are reading.
And her father as well was Steve Trevor.
And her father as well was Steve Trevor. Yes.
Steve Trevor, yes. And by the way, I love this suggestion by Lego Monster 21, who says an issue with Steve Trevor, Lois Lane, and Talia al Ghul, the non-superhero parents of the future 3-person trinity, which I know is redundant, but I just want to know that we're not saying Wonder Woman's kid when we say Trinity.
Got it. No. I'm the originator of this confusion. I get it. Yes, that is a great idea. Let's do it. I'm in.
There you go.
Let's do the. I guess Lois and Superman are still together in the future. We don't know what happens to Steve and Wonder Woman in the future. So
I understand. I'm gonna
maybe you'll find out in the new Trinity series that we're doing right now.
Oh my.
Maybe we'll find something out about that.
Here we go. And Jason says, tell DC Tom to get the trades out faster so it's easier to catch up with the monthlies. But he loves your work, so that's cool.
You don't think I'm begging them to bring everything out faster? That's all I do. You think they listen to me? I've been telling for 10 years bring these trades out faster. I just found it's going to be another year before Love Everlasting Volume 3 comes out. For some reason, trades are slowing down.
Interesting. That's surprising because I would think that's the product that's moving more than the issues, because you've got those lapsed writers, and also people are like, I don't know if I want to spend $5 on a single comic, but I'll spend $25 on a trade, or whatever the price is.
I am king of the trade waiters. I wait for trades. I have been doing it for 20 years now. So I completely understand. And yes, I wish they'd push out more trades. I mean, they haven't even done a complete Human Target out, and that book's been out for like 2 years. I don't know. Trust me, as much as you guys push in front of the scenes, I'm pushing behind the scenes, and I'm trying to make it all work. But we'll get there. I mean, the fact that I got up in the sky back in print is the victory. DC's very nice, but there's a lot of factors that are beyond my understanding.
Pete Beiser, and I'm glad you're watching tonight, Pete, but he has a good entry into Wonder Woman 16 with this interesting question. Oh, not him. Hold on. Where the hell is it? There it is. Any chance for the comic rights for Columbo might be up for grabs? I'd buy that, Tom, in a floppy or a trade.
Oh, my friend, you're in for a treat in Wonder Woman 16. Although I can't legally say that is. Oh, maybe I can. I don't know.
I thought at the very least there might be the solicit would be out there, because it's only a couple weeks away when it's coming out.
No. I hate to call it a 1-to-1 thing for fear of getting sued. Not that you should sue Columbo people. But I would say it's a tribute or a people long list. John and I talk about Columbo too much, and everybody knows it's my favorite thing. I have other favorite things. I like Star Trek. I like Friends, but I really love Columbo. So what happened? This is a bizarre story, but I'm going to tell it. I was at Comic-Con this year, and Bruno Redondo, one of the great artists in our industry, who I think just won Best Comic Artist Eisner. He definitely won Best Cover Artist. I think he won Best Book. I don't know. I'm always sitting at the table next to him, and he always has like 3 Eisners in his hands, and I have none. That's all I'm saying. And he's a fantastic person, and he worked with Tom Taylor on Nightwing, and is just one of the best. And he came up to me at Comic-Con and said, Tom, I want to do a book with you, which is the nicest thing anyone can say, and much less an artist of his caliber. And I was sitting with Daniel. Obviously, they're kind of from the Spanish contingent, which is running comics right now.
Yeah.
Where I have drawn those guys. I don't know what's in the water out there, but they're just the best books. I mean, obviously, Vision was done by Gabriel. Jorge Fornes and I have worked together on so many things. I'm working with Daniel Sampure on Wonder Woman, and now with Bruno, and I have Beleno Ortega. I don't know. There's something they're killing it in Spain. And so I said, great. Well, come do a Wonder Woman because Daniel's fast. He's doing more Wonder Woman books than any A-list artist out there, but he can't do them all. So Daniel's like, yeah, let me take a break here in the middle of this Fury arc just so I can make sure to do the climax of it. And I was like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want to draw? That's what, of course, every writer asks the artist that. And he thought about it. He came back. He's like, Tom, I really want Detective Chimp.
Yay.
And I was like, oh, because we're in the middle of this Fury arc where Wonder Woman is there's sort of two halves to Fury, but the first half of Fury, Wonder Woman, who's just had a child, just as it had a baby, is on what I would call some sort of a form of maternity leave. She's raising her child. And while because I wanted to acknowledge this is something women actually do. They take 4 months off. And while this is happening, she's deploying her army against Sovereign, basically. So if you see in the first issue in 15, she deploys the Wonder Girls, and she's slowly kind of taking away the chinks of his armor so that when his armor's all off, so that when she enters the field of battle, it'll be brutal. And I was like, how is Detective Chimp going to fit into that? But you don't say no to Bruno. Like he's a genius. So what are you going to do? So and this coincides with the fact that I had just written Detective Chimp in a crossover with Tony Daniel, and I had written him entirely wrong. I admit this sadly. I did not know. I saw Detective Chimp. I saw that he was like, where's the whole Holmes outfit? And so I had not read a lot of Detective Chimp comics. I think I read like 1 or 2 and had forgotten them. So I just wrote him as like a British Holmes. I wrote him saying pip pip and cheerio and all these things. And I get a note, people like, no, he's like a blue collar American guy. And I decided to redo all the dialogue. If you look at it closely, I'm sure there's one pip pip left in there. And so I was like, okay, so he's like a blue collar American guy. He's a detective. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do Columbo, aren't I? I was like, I'm going to make Detective Chimp into a Columbo. And I've always wanted to do a Columbo comic. Dan did you, and Danny was also a Columbo fan. We talked about how we could do it in the DC universe. And I was like, it's almost impossible because it have to be one and dones. Columbo's famously one and dones. And for a 22-pager to do a one and done Columbo story, you'd have to do the murder. It would have to be 3 pages. And there's just not enough real estate.
Yeah.
To do a whole Columbo. I was like,
Sure.
I think you'd need like 40 pages, Dan. And he's like, yeah, that would never work. And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, well, here I am. I've got Sovereign. He murdered Steve Trevor. Nobody knows he did it. I was like, oh, so I can skip the murder because you've seen the murder in 14. I've already set up the murder. And I was like, I can just skip to the Columbo part. And I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to do a tribute to Columbo and have Detective Chimp sort of go in and investigate Steve's murder Columbo style, not as Columbo obviously, but Columbo style, where the detective knows he's the murderer but is being very happy, being very nice, and by being nice he tricks the villain into doing the thing. And I wrote it. I had never had more fun. I was texting John dialogue as I was writing it because I was so excited about doing this. And I turned it in being like, this will never go over. This is the stupidest thing I've ever done. I actually wrote an apology to Bruno. I'm like, I'm sorry. This is mostly an ape talking to an old man for 22 pages. And Bruno's like, I love it. And it came out. And this is always a good sign. It doesn't happen. I've been around. It was one of those things where everyone who's seen the comic, the copy editor is like, I love this issue, Tom. And to the publisher, to Jim Lee being like, this is one of the best things you've ever written. Of this stupid thing that just came out of Bruno of Bruno's random character. So I think it's going to be one of those special issues. I think of the Double Date or the Fudd Batman.
Yes.
Just something that's going to something different in comics you haven't seen in a while that we managed, I think, to pull off in 22 pages, and that's Wonder Woman 16. I couldn't be more excited about this comic. It makes me happy. And as I've said on Instagram already, this to me was what they used to call a backdoor pilot. John and I are old people. We've we watched some Mork and Mindy back in our day.
Which was a backdoor pilot from Happy Days, exactly. The Jeffersons from All in the Family.
Yeah.
And in fact, as you and I are massive fans of Star Trek, the original series, the last episode of season 2, Assignment Earth, featuring the late great Terry Garr and Robert Lansing, that was a backdoor pilot for the Gary 7 television series that never happened, and that was their attempt to set that up. So yeah.
So this is my backdoor pilot for Bruno and I to do.
Yes, please.
A Detective Chimp series. So please buy the shit out of this. Write to your congressman. I'm sure they have nothing better to do right now that you want this series, because I think if enough people like this, I think I could make it happen. I think we could have our Mork. We could have our Laverne and Shirley.
Well, people are going nuts here about the idea and everything, and
I'm telling you, I'm sitting there doing the voice. I don't do the voice well, but I'm just. Oh, I'm so sorry to be here. I didn't mean I can't do Falk, but I'm an old Jew and I can.
I don't mean to bother you, sir.
Yeah,
but,
see, that's what. Yeah,
it's just what's driving me nuts. I was talking about it with the wife the other day when we were bowling the other night. By the way, as we're on the Columbo topic, I sent Tom and the Benson sisters links on YouTube. The original story that Detective Columbo first appears in. There's the TV movie Diagnosis Murder, which was the first TV movie with Peter Falk. However, if you go back to either 1960 or 62, one of those anthology shows that were on network television, I think it was for Chevy. There's a Levinson and Link, the creators of Columbo. The original story, it was called Enough Rope, and it was an hour-long version of that first Peter Falk TV series Columbo appearance, but it's with different actors. And Columbo's a minor character in the original story. What'd you think of it? Did you watch it?
I haven't watched it yet. I'm busy. It's on my list.
Jeez, I understand. Well, you are busy. I know you're busy. You're right.
I'm doing a whole Seinfeld rewatch now. I got a lot on my plate.
How far along are you on Seinfeld?
I'm on season 6. You know what?
Oh, great.
I'm going to go on limit there. Is that Seinfeld? That's a good show. That's put in a review.
My dear friend Mike Greenberg of ESPN and I would watch it, and then immediately on Fridays, just like, okay, this, okay, that. I mean, when it was fresh and brand new. So yeah, I love it. Oh, this is interesting.
As the world turns, I'm getting more and more into 90s sitcoms. So if you're wondering where I'm going to be the next 4 years, it'll be watching Frasier reruns.
Martian Manhunter, Brandon says, would be a great fit as a side character on that Detective Chimp idea. Yeah, he could be like Dennis was on the Rockford Files as John Jones and be the policeman. Yeah, you're right, John, but this is what bothers me. How did the murderer get from the inside when all the windows were shut? And
all the other cops in Columbo were always idiots. They always were. They were there just to be fucking fools. And he would always be like, "You're so smart. You've got this nailed down. I'm gonna go in the corner and look at this piece of hair, but you concentrate on the bullet that nobody cares about."
I love it, man. I was watching one of the 70s ones, and it's Dabney Coleman when he still had brown hair. And it's great because it's classic Dabney Coleman where he's chewing gum. It's almost like Mike Ditka was on the sidelines of the Bears. Yeah, tell you what, Columbo. Yeah, we got a thing over here, and it's great. He's when they're at the murder scene when Columbo makes his first entrance, he's one of the cops and stuff. I think it was the Martin Landau twin murder. One.
I was watching The Princess Bride with my family over Thanksgiving weekend. And amazing that Peter Falk just plays Columbo. There is no difference between his Columbo performance and his performance as old grandpa, where he's just like, fine, I won't read it. It's too scary. I understand. It's all passive aggressive guilt machine. It's exactly, he just plays Columbo as an adult. That's canonical to me. That's within his old years. He read stories to his grandchildren.
His supporting role in Wings of Desire, Turner Classic Movies reran it Saturday night. and it's all about. It was remade as an Angel movie with Nicolas Cage, but this is the original German version. And Falk has this.
Brilliant.
Oh my God, Wim Wenders, the wonderful filmmaker. But Falk essentially reveals himself as Peter Falk, to be a former angel who has come back to human form. And I used to be an angel too. And it's just him knowing that he's talking to this angel, and the angel can't speak back to him because he's on the other plane of existence. But they're basically having this very weird kind of conversation. And it's just, again, it's Peter Falk being Peter Falk. It's okay.
Peter Falk out here because I am in. I just watched. Who is he roasting? There's a Dean Martin roast where he appears as Columbo.
Sinatra,
that's who it is. I just watched that, and I was rolling.
And also the old Tonight shows where he would promote the next Columbo and stuff. And so what's been happening in Malibu? You've got the episode is on Sunday night, John. He's just ignoring him and just pumping the product. But I
also just watched his Actors Studio, that old show that I used to watch when I was a kid, where they ask him like the 7 questions, like what you would see when you go in heaven. It was heart melting, and there he is with like the longest cigarette in the world, just smoking on stage. He's like, he doesn't care that it's 2003. He's like, fuck it, I'm fucking.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, honestly, everyone's in for a treat. Tom gave me a sneak look at Wonder Woman 16.
I had to send that to you.
Well, yeah, dude, I love it, and exactly. I can't help it. My love for Falk and Columbo, the way you managed to sneak him into Rorschach was fantastic.
Pure coincidence.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about.
The detective has some. That's funny because I had not. That's a Jorge thing. I had written that detective as more Dana Andrews. Sorry, that's a reference for old people.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
I have a signed Dana Andrews behind me. If you look in the.
Do you really?
Direction. Yeah, I have
an autograph. That's great.
I have from Lore. I have him.
Everybody, the best years of our lives there it is. Wow. Oh, that's wonderful.
With Gene Tierney and
Laura. Yeah. Noir. Classic Noir.
I got that at a con. I was randomly walking the con floor, and there was a guy selling autographs, and he had a double signed Laura, and I'm glad. Dude, I'm telling you, this Wonder Woman 16 is something special. That's all I'm saying. Sometimes I say issues are special. This one's special. Of course, 14 was special too. And not saying 15 isn't special. 15 is very good.
Kari, you'll forgive me, but I'm going to try and educate you, because you're like, his ability to do that eye thing is crazy. He was amazing. Well, the problem was Mr. Falk had a glass eye. And so that's why he would get that almost cockeyed look on his face, because one eye didn't move. So that's the problem there, John.
And there's famous story, which I'm sure John knows, is that when he was like 7 years old, he lost it as a young man, and he was playing Little League Baseball, and he slid into first and they or second, and the ump called him out, and he popped his eye out as a child to be like, even with this, I could tell I was safe.
Yep. No, he's the man. He's Falk was the man, and just everything he did, I just loved his whole body of work.
Original art I'd like to own. Falk was an artist that was like what he acted so he could draw. That was his true passion, and he would often draw himself as Columbo.
Yes.
And, oh man, if I could get Peter Falk Columbo art that as an art collector, someday.
I hear you, buddy. No, I don't blame you. That's amazing. And I was jonesing. I mean, I've rewatched this once from the 70s a million times, and to the point where either Tubi or Pluto, I think it's Tubi, has the 90s movies to stream if you can tolerate commercials, which of course our age we can tolerate commercials. But I've even been watching the 90s ones just to have a fresh look at some other Columbo scenes other than the 70s ones, which I've watched, and rewatched for over 100 times each episode. So even the crappy ones.
I was John and I were discussing this before I came on. I have to be vague here because it's Hollywood crap. So through my Hollywood crap that I do a lot of Hollywood. I just got done with doing 6 months in LA. I'm back at DC. I'm back in DC now. I go back to LA in February, and you have lots of Zooms with lots of famous people, like actors you see in big movies and writers and directors you admire. and you're either they're trying to sell you or you're trying to sell them, and you're trying to meet them. Sometimes you have lunches. These days it's mostly Zooms because a lot of people are on set basically, and so we were having a Zoom with a woman who is a famous actress in the 70s who has a career beyond that. And she was in an episode of Columbo in 1990. Not only was she in an episode, she was the murderer. And the whole time she's talking, we're talking about whatever project we're working on and all the fantastic work she's done. I'm just like, when can I ask her about Columbo? I was like, can I get this in, or can I just say one more thing? And it didn't. I couldn't put it in. She started telling wonderful stories about what it was like to be an actress in the 70s and 80s, but I couldn't get her to move the conversation. But it's on my list. She was an absolute delight. One of the great hearts of our industry.
Outstanding, man. Excellent. Very cool. Let's see here. All right, a couple questions before we get into Black Canary, and also this is likely going to be an audio two-parter. So this is a good place.
Sorry, going long.
No, not at all. I mean, if anything, yeah, but that means I'm keeping you up. But
that means you get a day off on your birthday. You can take the day and lounge.
Today's my birthday, but that's all right. I'm
the day after your birthday. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. No. I tomorrow night hanging out with my high school friends that I'm still very close to, and Friday night my college friends, and we are karaokeing on Friday night.
What's your go-to song? The world wants to know.
I go for deep Sinatra cuts. I don't go for the "You'll Make Me Feel So Young" or "New York, New York" or "My Kind of Town." No. I go for "Zing Went the Strings of My Heart."
Zing went the strings. Yeah, I know "Zing Went the Strings of My Heart."
Judy Garland also. Well, I think I told you. I was very disappointed. One of the reasons why, because they're like, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" I'm like, all right, let's go to this Lincoln karaoke. And it's a private room karaoke place. So you don't have to worry about, singing off key in front of strangers. It's like, don't worry. It's just your friends. It's great, comfortable couches, great music selection. But there were a couple of karaoke stages at Terrificon in Connecticut at a couple of the bars. And there's a private karaoke room in their arcade that they have as well. So Stephanie Phillips and Azzarello have karaoke'd with me before, which getting Brian Azzarello to karaoke, I was blown away. But he did it, which was fantastic. But I was telling Howard Chaykin was tabling next to Walter Simonson, and I love them both.
My favorite people in comics.
And truly, man, nothing delights me more that both of them are so nice to me and happy. Walter wished me a happy birthday today, which was great. But so I'm like, hey, Howard, because I know he loves, classic Great American Songbook songs. I'm like, Howard, I go, they got a couple great karaoke places here. We should karaoke this weekend.
And Howard will start singing the songs he likes. If you talk to him, he'll switch in a song.
But to my surprise, he went, I hate karaoke. And I'm like, what? He's like, can't stand it. I'm like, Howard.
Howard Chaykin hates something?
Well, and also.
That's what
actually, yeah, that's true. Yeah, Howard hates a lot of stuff. You're right about that. But it did surprise me because, as you just said, I'm like, Howard, it takes nothing for you at the drop of a hat to break into song when you're tabling at a convention. And he goes, yeah, but that's different from karaoke. And I go, oh, you're going to miss it, man. I go, I wanted to impress you with my version of Zing with the Strings of My Heart. And immediately he goes, dear, when you smile at me. And he starts out, that's my point, Howard. You can't help yourself. What the hell's the matter with you? And Walter's just cackling, laughing. He's not going to do it, John. And I'm like,
pretty good, Walter.
Hey, man, dude, 30 years in Chicago radio, another 10 before that in other places. I'm a mimic, man. I can't help it. If I get in somebody's voice, and I love Walter. The one time when I made the wrong move of a Storm, a BlackBerry Storm was my first smartphone. Not the smartest phone, let's be honest. That's why BlackBerry doesn't compete with Android and iPhone anymore. But I took
not the smartest phone. That was in their advertising. It was a terrible slogan.
It's sad but true. So I took this picture of Walter. It was at one of the New York cons, and he was sketching, and it was kind of from a distance, so it wasn't the clear. So it was kind of a blurry picture, and I put it on Facebook. And the next day, he's like, "Yeah, nice blurry picture of me, John. Jesus." He's like, "Try harder." I'm like, okay, and that's when I knew Walter liked me because he was busting my chops. I'm like, fantastic, man. So anyway. That's funny. Yes. Synchro says, I can't imagine Brian Azzarello doing karaoke. He did heavy metal songs with Steph, but with me, I was so proud to get him to sing, and he just jumped up and started singing with me the fantastic 60s song Red Rubber Ball by The Circle. We sang harmony on Red Rubber Ball. I was very proud of him.
I'm one of the people they say, oh, I'm tone deaf as a hyperbole. I am actually tone deaf. I was born without the ability to tell notes from other notes or to project them out of my mouth. I was an actor in high school. That was like what I did as my thing. And we would do a fall play. Wonderful. Great. Get the lead. We would do a musical. I was great at acting and couldn't sing a fucking note. I was literally in 42nd Street. And I had to go up and be like, I love you, baby. And he's going to tell you how it is. And then someone else would come on, sing my song for me, and then leave the stage. And then I would continue.
Wow.
I am the world's worst. If you've ever seen me draw, that's the equivalent of me singing. It's this. God gave me half talents. He gave me, I can write and I can't draw. I can act. I can't sing. I'm only allowed to have one yin and one. I only have one side of each piece of paper. That's how he made.
There was a great defensive player during the 1980s for the Bears that was part of the Super Bowl team and the great years before and after that, Richard Dent, and his nickname on the team was the Colonel, and everybody thought, oh wow, man, they must have great respect for him. And it's like, I don't know if you remember, but the KFC commercial back in the 80s was the Colonel only does one thing right. And that's make chicken, but he does that thing good. And the one thing that Richard Dent did well was sacking the quarterback. And so that's why they called it's like, Richard, you suck at everything else, but you can do this one thing right. And that's why he was called the Colonel. So there you go.
That's brilliant.
Hilarious. All right. A writing question for Cosmo, and then we'll get into another big topic that we'll
love a writing question.
Tom, do you have any tips for pushing through the creative process when you can't stop doubting yourself? I'm really struggling with some writing assignments and would love some advice. Thanks.
The first thing you have to know is that doubt is part of writing. That's if you're not doubting yourself, you're not doing it right. If you're writing and being like, man, I am fucking nailing this. Every word is perfect. I can't believe that I am a writing god. Then you're probably either, I guess, possibility you're writing God, but there's more possibility that you're fooling yourself. I've worked with writers on their first writing assignment. I've worked with writers who have done, absolutely brilliant things, and they all have doubts. So if you're doubting, you're right. If you're writing, you're doubting. It's perfect. So you know that you're in the right place. Number two, I'm just going to be incredibly practical about this. And I've said this before, but I find it to be a very practical trip. There was if anyone ever watched Parks and Rec, another sitcom. I'm referencing a lot of sitcoms here, but my daughter loves this show. There was a running gag called Treat Yourself. When Donna and Tom would go off and take a day out of the year where they would buy themselves whatever they wanted. I would say set goals for yourself, and when you meet those goals, give yourself rewards. I'd still do this to this day. I've done it ever since I started writing. If I hit something, if I hit my deadline by the end of the week, if I hit my deadline by the end of the day, I will be like, okay, Tom, you can, like now they have a little money, you can buy that piece of art you really wanted because you fucking hit that deadline. Or it could be anything like, man, I really want that candy bar, but I'm not gonna get can't. I want that candy. Like, give yourself a reward, and then just write to get the award. Charles Dickens is a pretty fucking good writer. He wrote to get money. He had 9 children and a mistress. Like it's okay to write to get rewards. And so I just think from a practical standpoint, if you're stuck, find something you really want. Say, if I unstick myself, I get that thing, and then just focus on that and write, and stop caring whether it's perfect or whether everyone's going to say, good, perfect is the enemy of done that. That's, but just stop worrying about that shit, man, and let it go. I didn't become a writer. I wanted to be writing my whole life. I didn't become a writer until I read a book that was about pulp writers and how they wrote because they need to make 10 cents a word, and it was the Depression, and they had to feed their families. And I was like, you can't be precious about shit when you do that. You gotta fucking just write. And so that's it. Stop being precious. Reward yourself. Forgive yourself, and get going. It's on some level, writing is a blue collar job. Yeah, we got all these aspirations be fancy and to be Homer and to be Hemingway and all that stuff. But this is a job where you got to just, sometimes the pipes need to be fixed as you get down and fix the pipes.
I love it. Let's see here. Synchro also suggests to Cosmo, who asked that question, I also recommend using Meetup to join writing clubs near you. Sure.
Some people are inspired by writing clubs. I am not. I'm entirely intimidated by them, but I'm a weirdo. I'm a freak in that way.
No,
I don't like sharing. I like sharing my stuff with as few people as possible. I like sharing it with my editor and maybe sometimes my wife.
I respect that.
But I understand it's a big help for a lot of people, and I respect it.
Where is this one question that somebody had that was a good lead into Black Canary? I can't, forgive me, everybody. I can't find the person who wrote this, but I'll say,
we are
I'll say
live on YouTube right now.
I'll say the question anyway.
Everybody's changing the channel. They're like, oh, there's a.
Well, someone said, someone asked if Black Canary, because obviously she has been positioned as a rock singer along with her MMA skills,
a punk singer.
Pardon me.
I was there for the punk rock. I was literally in the room when they made that pitch. So because people, I did this thing where I had Black Canary as sort of a pop singer and people got mad, but it was more of a joke than.
They were asking who do you think she would do at karaoke like a famous artist if she were to sing karaoke?
Who would she do it? I feel like
Joan Jett would be my guess if she's into kind of that raw sound.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see Joan Jett. Yeah, that's a good call. I'm gonna trail on that. I was thinking, I think she'd do how Lady Gaga goes back in the past and sort of finds the great artists that are still in the 90s and still singing.
Sure.
I feel like Dinah's that kind of person. She has respect for the generations before her. So
that's cool. Probably some Patti Smith would be my guess as well back in the day.
Yeah, Patti Smith.
Yeah. I'm calling on my own rock roots with the WXRT radio station that I worked with for 10 years. So, that's funny. Kari says Heart, Barracuda. Sure. I can see that. I can see Dinah singing Barracuda. Absolutely. Hilarious. Well, let's get into it because issue 2 is coming, but we've already had the debut of this fantastic series of Black Canary, Best of the Best. And I love this title.
Inspired by this podcast, we have to acknowledge that.
Yes, thank you. I actually have a panel ready. Your play-by-play team are two friends of Tom King, and here's an image of said team. There they are.
I have no idea. You can't sue me. I have no idea.
Mike Berg and Johnny Sunter.
That's Wordy John Sunter.
Pardon me. You're right. That's my nickname. Wordy Johnny. Wordy Johnny Sunter.
Wordy Johnny Sunter.
I am wordy. I respect that.
Also, you do a podcast called Word Balloon. It's a pun.
I know that. I can't believe you didn't think I knew that. Absolutely.
It's all
Lego Monster 21 is absolutely right that Black Canary versus Lady Shiva was more exciting than Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Yes, this is very true.
If 100 million people had bought that book, I'd be okay.
Here they are facing each other, and Ryan Sook is killing it on this book. And I know you were thrilled to tell me back at the beginnings of this project. Guess who I got to draw? Black Canary with me, and I'm like, amazing. So no, it's lived up to expectations, man. Way to go.
Thank you. It's a huge success. The launch was really, really big. So thank you to everyone who picked up the book, everyone who went out and went onto socials and promoted it wherever they could. This was such a group effort by everyone. Black Canary obviously hasn't had a solo book that's really sort of soared to big heights, to use a bad pun. And so I couldn't say more to how much I appreciate the audience coming to this book. And I started this, 3.5-4 years ago. It was inspired by a lot of things, but one of them, since I'm with you, was you and Mike Cronenberg are my two good friends. We talk old movies together, and you guys, unlike me, are boxing fans, like top boxing fans, where you guys know your shit
Mike I have a former professional capacity where I wrote for Ring Magazine and Boxing Illustrated, and my years in radio and TV. Did color commentary and was the boxing expert at my radio stations. The Score, but also Sporting News Radio, the network that no longer exists, and even occasionally on the ESPN Chicago station. So but Mike is the art director for Ringside Seat, which is a fantastic boxing magazine that not only covers the current scene, but does an incredible job on boxing history as well. So yes, we were both very honored. I think I can speak for Mike. We haven't really talked directly about it, but I'm sure he told you how happy he was to be honored this way.
And Mike put out a book that he designed called Boxing Movie Posters. I'm going to get the name wrong. It's right here on my
great,
shelf. Boxing Movie
book.
Posters. I got it right.
And
it's an excellent book, and I bought it, and I loved it. And I was flipping through it, and it happened to me coincidentally at the same time I was sort of bonding with my son over watching WWE, which my son was super into. And I immediately was texting Mike, and I was like, I want to do one of these. I want to do a boxing movie. I just think there's so much storytelling to be here, and I want it to be, I want to get that excitement that my son gets out of WWE, and the excitement that I got from, the reason it's called Best of the Best is this excitement I got from Van Damme movies in the late 90s, watching them with my friends late at night. There's a famous one called Best of the Best with the great Eric Roberts. And so that sort of kernel of the idea started of doing, but then I was like, who would I use in this? Like, who would be boxing? How would it be interesting? And that went back to a conversation I had years prior at a Batman retreat when we sort of were designing a next event, which was going to be a sort of a hand-to-hand combat thing that never got pushed, called the Fight Night with a K, because we're so clever. And it was going to be like a pyramid-style tournament between all the Bat characters. And we were all sitting around. It was me and Scott Snyder, and I think James Tynan was there, Becky Cloonan was there, Josh Williamson was there. And we were sort of sitting around who would beat who in what fight. And at the time, we're like, who is the best fighter in DCU? And it was Lady Shiva. Like, yeah, she's the top. She's going to be at the top of the pyramid. And I was like, who's the second best? And someone mentioned sort of casually, like, I think it's Black Canary for some random reason. And was like, oh yeah, it's not like written down a lot, but there is like traces of it canonically. The Black Canary is the second best fighter under Shiva. So then when I was like, I want to write this fight book, I'd have that in the back of my head that Shiva was 1 and Canary was number 2. Fight Night, yeah. And I was like, well, that's got to be the match, man. That's a little better than Logan Paul and Mike Tyson. Like, the best fighter in the DCU and the second best, having a hand-to-hand combat fight over who's the actual best fighter in the DCU. Like those are stakes I like, man. That's the heavyweight championship. That's a match of the millennium. That's the fight I want to use. And then I'm sure you've read the book. I stole a little bit from Noir, as I always do. I stole a little bit from Noir called The Setup.
Of course, great movie.
A great movie with Ryan is in it, and
Robert Ryan, yes, directed by Robert Wise, who directed The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Andromeda Strain, the first Star Trek movie, The Sound of Music, The Magnificent Ambersons. He's a brilliant director that, much to the chagrin of Gabe Hardman, I always bring up and say Robert Wise doesn't get his due, and he's like, nah, he was just a good, credible director. I'm like, the guy did every genre.
Orson Welles did The Magnificent Ambersons. That's not.
Oh, but you're right. Excuse me. He edited Ambersons. Pardon me. He might have edited Kane as well.
Yeah, he edited Kane as well. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. So great editor, great director, and yet, like I said, I think just a great director in every possible genre. Just proved himself.
Really brilliant. I just watched, my son's doing Sound of Music as his play this year, so we just watched it.
That's great,
up, man. It was good.
Setup inspired your fight story in Black Canary, and then also, and I think the solicits are out, so I don't feel bad showing this cover to issue 2 that's coming up.
Yes,
yes. So not only is it a modern story about Dinah, it's also about the Golden Age Black Canary, and we get a lot of backstory about her, and of course, without spoiling, what's happening to Dinah's mom is very much part of the story in modern.
Yes. So it's basically a match. It's the match of the millennium. It's the two of them fighting in the corners of the ring, with 2 commentators commenting, going back and forth, sometimes losing, sometimes winning, and it's for 6 rounds. Each issue is a round, so that's how it goes. But as they're fighting, I stole a little bit from a Kevin Costner movie called A Perfect Game. as they're fighting, we flash back to why they're fighting and to how they got here. And in those flashbacks, you see that this is not a book about Shiva and Canary, although it's about the fight. What it's really a book about is about Shiva, about a Canary and her mother, the original Black Canary. For people who don't know, Black Canary is a very old DC character. She's been around 80 years now. She's, you know, as old as Robin, created by the great Bob Kanigher, and I think Joe Huber. But after post-crisis, since they were sort of dividing the world, they created this thing, since her stories went so far back, that there was a mother and a daughter relationship, that there was an original Black Canary and a Dinah Drake Black Canary and a Dinah Lance Black Canary, who's the sort of modern version. And I wanted to explore the greatest theme in DC, the one thing that we have over Marvel, which is legacy, and the idea of what your parents give to you and what you take from them and what you pass on to your children and what they take from you. And so this is a book, it's happening in the match, but it's all really a metaphor for sort of her relationship with her mother. And like any great boxing movies, it's about skill in the beginning, then it becomes about heart, and in the end, when all of that stuff is worn out, it becomes about soul. So that's what it's about. Where does that soul come from? It comes from your parents. It comes from who you were as a kid, and it comes from how you became an adult because of that. So that's the charge of the book. Like you said, the most important thing to know, besides all that bullshit I just spat at you, is that Ryan Sook is drawing this, and it's going to be, I can now say this because Helen is off the shelves, it's going to be the best looking book of the year. DC was so kind, so considerate. As people know, Ryan is a legend, but he is meticulous. He gets things right, and he gets the details right. And so he hasn't done a long run of interiors in a while. And so DC sees, like, the scripts came in, and they're like, we like this so much, Ryan can take his time and get this done. And they gave him literal years to work on this book until they released it. And so that Ryan could draw all 6 issues, and these are 28-page issues, and have a complete run on this book. And I think it's one of the best things I ever wrote. And I hope you all pick it up. That's a lot of pitching. I apologize. That's me selling. We can go back to Peter Falk now.
No, I want to stick to the mother-daughter idea of Black Canary. I, again, being as old as I am, I remember those early 70s stories where Earth 2 Black Canary came to Earth 1. And so it was that Golden Age Black Canary that joined the Justice League initially. But of course, with time, it made more sense to kind of rejigger things so that, Dinah's mom was the Golden Age one, and that the younger one is the one that now is in love with Ollie Queen and everything else that's happening and stuff with Black Canary. And no, I think it's a perfect progression of what was always hinted at before women heroes were getting the agency they now get. And that's why Black Canary is perfect. And you don't have to really reconfigure her in any way to tell this kind of story. It's like, no, it's all there. It's always been there. And now we just are in a modern era where you can do this. And also, by the way, great timing, Tom, because as bad as that Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight was, and you can watch on Netflix if you want to see the whole card, the main support card was a support fight was a championship fight in the women's divisions. And listen, again, I remember as a kid watching the first women box in the 70s. And even when I started covering boxing professionally as a writer in the 80s and 90s, it was a frontier sport. And we had great fighters, but not a lot in the same weight classes. And that's why back in the day, and now I'm blanking, Layla Ali fought, it's a woman boxer from the 80s and 90s, and Sydney Sweeney just signed up to play her in a biopic.
Oh.
I can't believe somebody in the chat knows what I'm talking about. I can't remember. Chris, God bless it, not Christy. Or it might have been Christy, might be her first name. But regardless.
Was it Dozier?
She was like, no, her name was William Dozier, yes. Can it be that I'm about to fight Christy Martin? All right, thank God, the brain works. Christy Martin. Yes, thank you, Lego Monster. Indeed, it is Christy Martin. Christy Martin fought Layla Ali, and literally it was a 140-pound woman fighting a 178-pound woman. And that just doesn't happen that often in boxing. Now, in the same weight class, we have competitive fights. And truly, one of the greatest women fights ever happened on that Tyson Paul undercard. that they are great as the WNBA is now. Dare I say, women's boxing has reached a level of technique and skill that I think is even better than the product we're getting in the WNBA. And we're seeing good fights, and these women are not ticky-tacky, like they're punching each other. And that's fun because it is a combat sport. They're waging combat. And I love that this comic, and I can tell my boxing friends, hey, you want to see something like the action we're seeing in the sport now and stuff, pick up Best of the Best, because this Black Canary series definitely matches that.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we used a lot. I mean, Ryan used a lot of MMA references for it. I generally use the rule, and this is a silly rule, but I write comic books and I like silly things. Wrestling, to not spoil it for you, is an incredibly athletic and incredibly entertaining thing. Those people are actually, when a 180-pound man picks up a 300-pound man, that man is actually picking him up, but it's not real. Obviously, like the goal of jumping on someone is for you to absorb the blow and not have the person beneath you absorb the blow, which is part of the athleticism of it and part of the amazing that they make it look so real. But I used the silly rule in this, that what if wrestling was real? What would the actual consequences be? So they're fighting not boxing, but they're fighting sort of in a WWE MMA style. So you see people getting slammed and jumping. And obviously in an MMA or boxing match, you wouldn't jump off the top rope to crush somebody.
Well, that's true. That's true.
I use the conceit of comics to be like, what if those moves actually worked in incredible ways, but mostly Ryan is controlling these fights. Anyone who's seen my scripts, it's more like, she jumps, she punches, she dodges, and Ryan's putting in all the details. Brilliant.
Is Ryan a wrestling or MMA fan?
He is not. Having done interviews with him, he is not. That's not sort of his. But he was like, for this book, I want to learn, and he did his research, man. You can see it on every page. I mean, the stuff he puts in there. I mean, it's not easy to. I mean, that was the challenge of the whole thing. I've been in comics for a while now. I've done a lot of different comics. I've done science fiction. I've done pulp. I've done Lord knows I've done enough romance. Do a sports comic, to do a comic that takes place in four corners of a ring. That's what really appealed to me about this was the utter challenge of it. Was that this was not something that would be easy. And so the only reason I get to pull it off is because Ryan's making it come to life.
Have there been other solo Canary miniseries over the years? I mean, obviously prominent role in Birds of Prey, prominent role in Green Arrow and in the Justice League over the years. But yeah, and again, as Birds of Prey, she's the leader.
We have to ask like Brian Cronin or somebody. I can't think of any on top of my head. Obviously she's been, I mean, I make it a joke that she's been on every superhero team ever.
Was she an outsider? Was she a Batman outsider? Maybe not.
I don't know. Maybe
not.
But I wasn't a Seven Soldiers of Victory. She wasn't on Legion of Superheroes yet. Who knows? But she was on a lot of different Justice Leagues.
Oh yeah, God, yeah, Bwahaha, and again, the Len Wein era, the Denny O'Neil era. Sure. Oh, absolutely, man.
But so I can't speak for her Soul Series, but she does have.
Of course. Shame on me. Synchro, yes. In the DCU era, we had the 12-issue series in 2015. Of course we did.
That's right. Where she was the punk rocker. Of course.
Indeed.
We already talked about it.
Shame on me. Yes. Yeah. We're failing memory.
Who was on that? I can see their faces and I can't name their names. So that's what being old is about. What she does have, which no one in comics has, is what I consider to be the best drawn superhero comic of all time, which is 2 backup issues in Adventure Comics, I think around 217, 219, where Alex Toth, Denny O'Neil script, did 2, I think there's 13 pagers with a solo story of Black Canary, and I just consider them to be, she's had a handful of minis. That's my instinct too. I consider those to be the height of comic art, the superhero art. And one of the pages just went up. I was going to bid on it, and it went for fucking $30,000.
Wow.
So I'm obviously not the only one who has this opinion. So she has that to me elevates her as a character. The fact that Toth, who drew very few, Toth is one of my favorite artists of all time, maybe my favorite comic artist of all time, and drew very few superhero comics. But drew Black Canary, and that was sort of his superhero masterpiece, and that to me elevates her.
Well, that's why in here, looking at again the cover for issue 2, As much
Look
as
how brilliant that is with using the mirror and the smile and the perfection. And Black Canary famously wears a wig, and we play with that thematically a lot. And the idea of sort of hiding your identity in plain sight, and also sort of putting on a wig that your mother wore, what that means. And so you see that play in this book here.
But it's that classic fishnet bustier costume that, sorry everybody, it's iconic. And there've been in times.
You have to apologize. It's a wonderfully iconic costume.
Amen. And I'm kind of glad that the pendulum has swung back, because I do remember in the 80s she had her jumpsuit that she wore during the Bwahaha years.
The 80s where she had the shoulder pads, that's also iconic.
All right. If you say so.
Reference to it.
All right. That's fine.
I personally prefer her classic look, but I prefer most characters' classic look.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel too. And especially all those Golden Age characters. And that's why it doesn't surprise me that Toth would gravitate towards Black Canary, because she has that femme fatale kind of noir look.
She does. And Lord knows I loved femme fatale noirs are things I enjoy.
Veronica Lake would have been a great 1940s Black Canary.
I think she was the model for the first one. I think
probably.
I think that's what Joe based her on.
I agree with Timur. Black Canary and Zatanna both rocking the fishnets. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's one of the things about Black Canary. She has a very iconic look. She has something that's very few. I mean, if you ask comic book creators, I was on a panel with some amazing creators, legends of the book, and they asked us sort of why Batman is the most. It was Klaus Janson and Dan Jurgens there. My brain finally kicked in. And why Batman is iconic. And as the writer, I answered, I was like, because I think his silhouette is so wonderful and so powerful and so easy for artists to manipulate into these amazing pictures. And they're like, yeah, I was like, and that's true of her. She has an iconic silhouette and an iconic look, which, I mean, that's a lot to work with there.
Synchro, I'm going to disagree with you. He says Mike Grell's Dinah wasn't for me, though. I did love his Green Lantern. I loved Mike Grell's Dinah, and in fact, in Longbow Hunters, that kind of was the backdoor pilot for the ongoing Green Arrow series that came afterwards. Now, I mean, Mike's a wonderful, good girl artist, and I think his Dinah was outstanding. So,
Mike Grell's still with us and still
yes,
awesome. I was on a panel with him just 2 years ago.
That's great.
Cool. Yeah.
He's got another new project coming up, and his producer for the Kickstarters is like, hey man, just so you know, we're eyeing when we're going to drop it, and when we do, Mike wants to come back. I'm like, Mike can come back anytime he wants, man. I'm like, I love talking to Mike Grell. What an artist! He
did a cover for Danger Street for us.
Outstanding. I'd forgotten that, man. No. So looking back now on Danger Street, Tom, how do you, it's a little in the rear view mirror now. How do you feel about the series? Are you pleased with the way it came out?
Mostly, I'm sorry for having tortured Jorge for those. Are you kidding? I'm more than that's one of the things. Yeah, no, I'm incredibly pleased with the series. I think it's people ask me the underrated comics I've read, and I think it would be that one and Gotham City Year One are comics that I just think are the best I can write, and are beautiful comics. So I couldn't be more proud of Strange. I don't have a complete. They don't have a complete. They only have volume 1 and 2. When I have that complete collection, I can flip through and see all 22 of those characters bouncing off each other. No, I set out to do something, and I accomplished it. So I'm super proud.
I think you did.
The Midwestern in me is mad for all the bragging, so I apologize for it. But I enjoy that book.
Well, Synchro Shadow Advanced says Danger Street read like Fargo in the DC universe. Absolutely loved it.
Stop seeing through my code, man. It's like he's watching Matrix. Yeah, that was the original intention. It was supposed to be Fargo in the DC universe.
That makes sense.
That's exactly right.
Gotham City Year One is amazing, says Charlie Lewis. Did they push that with Penguin?
No, they did not push that with Penguin. With Penguin, they pushed my Penguin book that I did. That was made purposely to come out when the Penguin show came out. And so if you love that show, which I loved and thought was fantastic, especially I love the ending. I know it's fucking dark as crap, but that ending, that's when it really came together for me. I thought obviously the 4th episode was just a masterpiece. But when I got to the ending, I was like, oh, that's what this was about. Damn. All right. Well done. It was almost like an O. Henry ending. I was like, I get it.
No, I get it. And and no, both your series and the HBO series were outstanding, man. Really, really great.
And so if you, I should say, I don't say this enough. If you like that Penguin show, I did a series that, I mean, it just wrapped up. It just wrapped up. The first trade is out. It's with Rafael de la Torre on art, doing brilliant stuff. And it's not the same as the Penguin show. It's obviously not the same plot. It's not the same universe. For example, his name is Oswald Cobblepot in my book. But it's the same tone. It's the same ideas. It has some similar twists. It's about why this kind of grotesque man is underestimated and is actually smarter, more eviler. That's not a word. More evilist. Is the baddest motherfucker in Gotham, is basically what it is. So it very much lines up with the show. If you're watching the show and you're like, I fucking love that, I want more, this is more.
I agree.
Go to the Penguin. The first trade's out now. It's not expensive. A good Christmas thing.
I actually have an answer for Synchro's question here, which is, what would the Penguin's go-to karaoke song be? Yeah, that Penguin show was heartbreaking and phenomenal. His karaoke song would be by the Beatles, And Your Birds Can Sing. Thank you.
Not Blackbird. You went to the deeper bird.
Oh, well, that's what I do, man. Like I said, I don't go for the obvious songs and stuff.
Or you didn't go Free as a Bird, the 1990s reunion song.
You know, all right.
The next best thing to be.
I did not mind, even though it sounds like a funeral dirge, and it kind of worked as one of the last Beatles songs. I liked Free as a Bird. I hated what Jeff Lynne did to John Lennon's original demo for Real Love, the other song that came out after Free as a Bird. And because I didn't mind the way they used Lennon's echoey voice on Free as a Bird, it worked. But when he was the main singer beyond the chorus of Real Love, and it's like it was coming out of a Edison Victrola kind of, one of those kind of machines. It was so muddy, and it's like, you're not doing him any favors. You should have just released, because I have the Lennon box set where the demo of Real Love with just Lennon playing the piano and singing. I'm like, that could have been a fine B-side, and just leave it at that. What did you think of Now and Then, the final one that if people probably remember, this is only a few months ago. They wanted to release Now and Then as part of the anthology.
Fast.
What's that?
It came and went so fast. It was like a one-day phenomenon.
Yeah, but also again, it was this sad song rather than an upbeat pop song, which I think everybody would have liked to have heard by the Beatles, the surviving Beatles. But I did find it interesting, at least. And again,
I was like, yeah, that's pretty good.
It works. Yeah,
it didn't blow my mind, but I wasn't offended by it. The new Beatles material, I'd like to sing, and I thought the video was super cool. The big Beatles content of the last year was the documentary. That was the big thing that really blew me away.
Sure.
The Hulu documentary. No, the Disney Plus documentary.
I'm about 40 minutes into the new one about 1964 with the Beatles.
Oh, I haven't seen it. Oh, yeah, I want to see that one.
It's on Disney Plus. Pretty good so far. A lot of cool footage of things they were doing in New York. At least right now, it's still that week before the Sullivan Show and everything. And now, right here on our stage, I love Sullivan. I still watch the reruns. They're fantastic.
So when they went to LA, I think this is a second. I think it might be 65. They went to Disneyland one day.
Okay.
And my mother was 13, 14 years old. And she was my mother lived and died by the Beatles. She was just telling me when she was a kid that music died in 1968. Or 1970, sorry. And,
interesting. When they quit.
Yeah, she was just like, no, there's nothing, no good music happened after they quit.
Interesting.
Was sort of her opinion on the subject.
I wish I had met your mom, man. I think your mom and I would have gotten along really well.
Cool. She was cool. But okay, so she found out they were going to Disneyland, and she was a Southern California a young woman, and so she went down to Disneyland, and at the time, there was like a guest list you had to sign, or like probably get into a restaurant or something, and she got, and she was signing, she flipped through the books to the page where the Beatles signed it, and she ripped out the page, stuffed it in her pocket, and ran. And I have the page. She kept it.
Wow.
I still have it.
So what celebrities were on the list?
It's I'll have to show it to you. I have it in a drawer. It's weird. It's not what I can't quite figure out. I know what day it was done. Because people track the Beatles day by day. It was the day they dropped Acid with Peter Fonda, because that night they went to Disneyland and then dropped, and then they wrote the "I Know What It's Like to Be Dead" song based on sort of.
Oh yes.
That's her famous story. So earlier in that day was the day my mother ripped this thing off, and it has all 4 of their signatures on there, but they seem like they're in the same handwriting. I think what happened was George kind of signed it, and also it has on I forget who George's wife was at the time.
It's Eric Clapton's wife.
Yes, Eric Clapton's wife, and she signs her name 3 times.
Patty.
So she signs Patty Amerson and Patty Boyd. She signs her name over and over again. I don't know what the story is, but they're all there, and I think one of them was I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's this bizarre document that I found after my mother died.
All right, all these people are making suggestions of karaoke songs for various
that's what we're gonna do.
Batman villains.
DC karaoke.
Lego Monster says, let's be honest, Penguin would sing Sinatra's My Way.
So corny, my goodness. The number 1 funeral song in America.
Synchro says
Sinatra disliked that song. Sinatra himself did not like that song.
I didn't know that.
He felt it was too arrogant.
Did you ever hear the story about That's Life? And that he sang it, and the producer's like, Frank, it's a joke. It's arrogant. You got to be tougher. And Sinatra hated doing more takes than he thought was necessary.
Yeah, like, one, done.
And he's like, fine. And he sang it again, and it's the version that we hear on the single. And he was so like he finished, and you hear him say my, which essentially, at the end of the song, roll up in a big ball and die. My. And his my was ad-libbed. And the producer said it was kind of my F, like his FU to me, like for making me do this again. He goes, as soon as the session was over, he left the studio, didn't say anything. Then he sent the producer sent him a copy before it was released of the song, and Sinatra wrote him an apology letter. It's like, you're right, it's great, I'm sorry, never mind. And it's like, wow, man, Frank apologized. Oh my God, Frank apologized. Robert says,
they read a great autobiography. What's the song where he scats and then he named Scooby Doo by scatting? Because I did not know this because I had listened to the song one time. He goes Scooby Dooby Doo.
Oh, that's Strangers in the Night.
Strangers in the Night, yeah, that's it. Yeah. I had not realized. I was like, that's so funny that he would randomly say that. But then I learned later they actually named Scooby-Doo after the scat. It's not like a coincidence. It's like someone listened to that song and said, I love that scat so much, I'm naming Scooby-Doo after him. Yeah, Strangers in the Night. Scooby-Doo.
Synchro says for the Joker, he thinks Brain Damage by Pink Floyd would be good. Although someone, Robert said Everybody Loves a Clown, so why can't you? By Jerry Lewis's son.
Wouldn't it be Smokey Robinson, Tears of a Clown?
Sure. Or and Kari says, would the Riddler be Sympathy for the Devil? Interesting. Hope you guess my name. Very funny. And then Dylan wanted to know
Who songs and be like, get it? Who? It's a riddle.
Dylan wanted to know what DC characters, and another person has an answer for it. Which DC characters would you use to parody that Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight? And Charlie Lewis says Lobo and Golden Age Hour Man.
No. First of all, it would be Booster Gold, which would clearly be Paul.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That's absolutely true, Tom. I was like, yeah, he'd be Jake Paul.
That's the no.
And I think it would be Booster Gold against Wildcat. Ted Grant.
Oh, poor Wildcat. Well, yeah, I guess so.
And
he's the kind of guy who would fight in his 70s. I can see that.
Absolutely.
Ted Grant does appear in Black Canary for people who are wondering.
Sometime I didn't want to. If you want to say that, that's fine. But a few people asked some what I would consider to be story spoiler questions, and I didn't even want to put them up because it's like, here's an idea, read the story. Don't get ahead of yourself.
Find out in the second issue that Ted Grant is her corner man, and
yes,
and you'll see that, and then you'll see why Ted Grant's her corner man, not her mother, which is the question.
Brock's Basement. I've been saying for years that Tom needs to have a playlist of music for us to enjoy with his books.
All those sophisticated comic book writers who make playlists of music are much better than me. I do write to music. I have a long playlist. It's basically like every song I like.
Sure.
But I'm not. I think because it's funny. We were just talking about my mother when I was a kid was of the opinion that all new music sucked, and so was my father. And so I grew up thinking that new music was for fools. So because of that, I didn't until I was like 16, 17. I was like, Nirvana? Have you heard? of the Guess Who. Like I was a fucking idiot as a child and did not listen to new music. And so because of that, I never kind of went through that phase that I think my son is currently going through, which you do when you're 15, 16, which is listen to all the new music and find the thing that you love in it and sort of attach yourself to it to life. Yeah. I didn't get that. So I can't do that thing that Kelly Sue and Fraction can do, where they can do sort of these, you can do these deep cuts from their childhood. I can do deep cuts of Christmas music right now because that's all I'm listening to.
That's funny, for my karaoke party that I'm doing Friday night, I'm actually finding good versions of Christmas songs. Like, I want to do White Christmas, but not Bing's version. I want to do the doo-wop Drifters. I'm dreaming. It's fantastic. It's really, really great.
Absolutely. Bing Crosby, original cast of Columbo, originally for the first.
Yeah, that's right. The Levinson and Link wanted Bing Crosby to be Columbo, and he's like, I'm not going to do another TV series. Are you nuts? No. So he wanted to work.
Who don't know, I have a son named Crosby. So
outstanding. And someone asked earlier, and I know the answer to this, but they were wondering if, and you've talked about this before when you were teasing the Black Canary series, and saying, like how much Taylor Swift is there in Black Canary as a performer? Am I right? Wasn't it?
That's a reference to a short story I did in the back of Wonder Woman, where I do these very silly short stories with the Trinities.
Yes,
that we're turning into a series, which are my favorite things to write, which are where I get to. I've written the most sad, depressing, horrific stories ever. So for me to get to do sort of my Calvin and Hobbes is a joy. And so I do these Calvin and Hobbes backups with Little Trinity, and I did one where 13-year-old Trinity, who we call Wonder Girl,
yes,
goes to a Taylor Swift concert with her two older brothers with I legally probably can't say that, but it's a Black Canary concert, and it was a joy because I have a daughter who loves Taylor Swift, and I have a younger son who loves Taylor Swift, and I have an older son who is much too cynical to love the popular. He acknowledges her influences. And I was able to channel his cynicism into Damien and take exact quotes out of my son's mouth and put them into this comic, where he's like, her regurgitated synth beats, he'd like it, and just to use his. And then of course, it's a conversion story where upon seeing Black Canary perform,
he comes around.
Yeah,
that's excellent, man. Hilarious. Someone was asking what Wonder Woman's karaoke song would be. Well, a couple come to mind. First of all, if she was solo, I think Helen Reddy's I Am Woman would obviously work quite well for her. But if she wanted to involve all the legacy Wonder Women and get them all together, they could perform the Eurythmics Aretha Franklin duet, Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves.
Love it. Love all of it. Perfect.
I used to refer to myself as the Jon Stewart of comics as far as interviews. Perhaps I'm also the Ari Melbourne of comics, because Ari always throws in the hip hop references when he's doing his political interviews and stuff. So, which always cracked me up.
It's perfect. Yeah.
So, too much, man. Oh, and someone was wondering too if
there's a famous story that JMS wrote for Brave and the Bold with Cliff Chang art, where it's one of my favorite stories of all time. I just bring this up because Wonder Woman, Batgirl, and Zatanna go out for sort of a ladies' night on the town, and they sing karaoke. I think they sing "Single Ladies" by Beyonce.
Oh, that makes sense.
But if you want to actually see Wonder Woman sing karaoke, it did happen in a comic book, and the great Cliff Chang drew it. And it's one of the best single issue comics of all time.
I think I blew it in terms of when I interviewed Joe, and I don't know if I'll ever have the chance to interview J. Michael Straczynski again, but I forgot to bring up that great Girls Night Out interview or issue of Brave and Bold. I know I got to go through the library because I don't think Cliff's ever been on Word, or no, he has been on Word Balloon a couple times, and I think Cliff and I talked about Girls Night Out back in the day, but never Joe, and that's too bad because that was a great story. That's That's the thing. I mean, Joe is, let's put it this way. Joe is very idiosyncratic, and that's totally fine. Everybody can be themselves. I don't want to, everybody doesn't have to be best friends with everybody else. And I'm really glad I had that incredible interview with JMS. But I imagine, it's the onus is on him should he ever want to come back to Word Balloon. And I
imagine few people can talk Babylon 5 on your level. I imagine.
I love that show. I adore that show. And but everything, no, man. And, even I was even talking to him about, working on the 80s Twilight Zone. Because he was part of that. And, that show, because every iteration of the Twilight Zone, unfortunately, is going to be compared to Rod Serling. You can't. I mean, the murderer's row of writers that he had, including himself, Charles Beaumont, Richard Matheson.
Actors. You can't believe the actors.
Yes.
Robert Redford's in a random episode of that friggin'
Charles Bronson, Lee Marvin, James Colburn, Elizabeth Montgomery, Rod Taylor. I forgot a first season one where the
Robert
three
Redford's
astronauts.
still alive. So is Shatner. Shatner's in 3 of them.
Shatner's in it. Yes. I mean,
I watched the other Shatner one recently.
Which one?
Everyone talks about the plane one. The one where, and I just thought it was the best.
In the diner?
In the diner, yes.
Yeah, Nick of Time.
Nick of Time.
Where it's got like a fortune telling machine on the in the diner booth.
I just love.
Well, should we leave? Can we leave today?
Yeah, and he gets addicted to it, and he's like, and it's gonna like kill him. And his wife has to drag him. It's like it's an addiction metaphor. It's a anxiety metaphor. It was brilliant. And Shatner, who's like whatever 23 at the time, is perfect.
Yeah. No, I'm with I dude again. And I don't mean to pick on him because Gabe knows how much I love him. But Gabe and I will argue, and it's like, oh yeah, Shatner in the 60s. I'm like, Shatner was amazing in the 60s, man. Pre-Star Trek. I'm like, good Lord, the man managed to actually be credible with Spencer Tracy in Judgment at Nuremberg.
He's great in Judgment at Nuremberg. He's playing a military man. Does him straight up.
Yep. No, he was great. No, Shatner's the man. I am with you, man.
And
hilarious.
Still with us.
And 93 or whatever. Tom, have you watched that film that the Otoy, the Roddenberry Archives, and Shatner and Nimoy's estate all approved?
It's this. Have not.
Okay, it's this. I'm going to send it to you. It's on YouTube. It's this 8-minute film that essentially is Kirk in the afterlife after the events of Generations, and that's all I'll say about it.
He acts in it, or it's like he's animated, or
well, no, they used the guy
AI voice.
Well, they used the actor who ended up playing Darkseid in the Smallville TV series, and he was also a lieutenant that gets killed on Battlestar Galactica. Sam Whitner.
I like Generations. I'm a Generations defender. I'm maybe the only one out there.
And I like parts of it.
I like it better than the 8th one. I like it better than the Borg one.
That First Contact. Well, that is controversial. Okay.
Yeah, that's how controversial I am. I'm going out there on a limb.
I just would have wanted more of either story.
The death is stupid. I do not like the death. He dies. I mean, he saves like 250,000 people, but it's like he's on a bridge and it's collapsing. It's like it was a very Titanic death where you're like, just reach up and put him on the board. Like Kirk had to go out better than that.
I agree.
Better than that.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why, because they have a lot of. First of all, it's odd because it is authorized by CBS/Paramount. But I don't know if it will ever be considered canon or not. But it really does kind of redeem that hollow death of Generations. And I will just leave it as what happens after
Generations. I assume the odds are against us and the chances are slim.
Sounds like fun.
Perfect. Perfection.
You know what bummed me out in the commercials for the movie? Because he has the first like kind of punch out fight with Malcolm McDowell and knocks him on his ass or whatever. And in the trailer, but you never saw it in the actual movie, he goes, the 24th century's not that tough. And it's that great, arrogant Kirk
as long as he joins his arms and hits him with the side of his hands.
Well, he was too old to do the flying kick, unfortunately. Come on, man.
I love them. I love Generation. I'm in. I saw like 5 times in the theaters.
Carrie, you're very sweet. Kari, she says, I wish there was a way to download the information from your brain directly into mine, John. The amount of time it would take me to catch up is insane. I so wish I had all that bouncing around. Well, it's a curse and a blessing, if I may.
It's a blessing for the rest of us. No curse at all.
Yeah, Parker, I'm not going to, Tom can decide. If you see in the chat, Parker Haisha is asking a question that I think, you've already said it. Excuse me. Was wondering if Ted Grant has a role to play in the current Black Canary series. And yes, you've already acknowledged that.
He has a role. Take it.
Okay.
And Ollie comes in later, but the stars of the book are Dinah and her mother. And of course the fight. This is I've written stories that are, wrote a lot of. I've never written a mother-daughter sort of dynamic. I guess I did some of it in Wonder Woman. I don't know.
Synchro wanted to know, I genuinely don't know if you're allowed to answer this question. Have you seen the Superman trailer for James Gunn's upcoming adaptation?
I genuinely can't answer that question, but it's a good question.
All right, there you go.
And Cosmo, I can say, because I saw reviews came out today, I have seen Creature Commandos and enjoyed them immensely.
Great to hear. Fantastic. Yeah, man, we're only a couple weeks away, everybody, from Creature Commandos. Yeah. And also, thank you, everybody, for showing up. While this might drive people away, but Skeleton Crew dropped earlier this evening on Disney Plus during our conversation. The first 2 episodes of the new Star Wars.
So I know nothing about it. Zero. I have no. But doesn't it look a lot like that Prodigy? Just in terms of the plot.
Yes, it does.
Like a one-to-one Prodigy.
Yes,
Are people talking about that? People must be talking about it. I watched the preview. I was like, they just did this in Star Trek in a cartoon form. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and also, frankly, it looks very Goonies-like as well, frankly.
But that's what they were going for in Prodigy, I feel like.
That's interesting, because I never really got the Goonies vibe in Prodigy, but I do feel it in this one. And it really has that Disneyfication feel. I don't know. Again, and I hope it's good. I really hope it's good. I am like, can we get back to, like, other stories than the ones you've been telling in some of these TV shows that have turned people off? Sorry, I am one of those people. I want inclusion. I want representation. I really hated The Acolyte with a passion, and I don't feel bad saying that. I wish it was better. And also, it feels like both in the animation and in the live action stuff, to find significant male characters along with these strong women characters kind of getting harder. And I don't understand that. That's my editorial comment on the current product that we're getting from Star Wars. I did not watch The Acolyte. As someone who works a lot in Hollywood, I am neutral on the subject of everything, and everyone is wonderful. James wanted to know when we're getting an absolute edition of Supergirl Women of Tomorrow. Maybe they're saving that for the movie, which hopefully will eventually happen.
The movie's happening. That movie.
Well, there you go.
So, yeah, they're
absolute edition,
as James Gunn has said.
Absolute edition, perhaps, of Woman of Tomorrow.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard. God, it took us so long to get the Mr. Miracle Absolute. I don't know what would come. The good news is there is a deluxe hardcover for Supergirl, which, if you're looking for Christmas presents, oh my God, I'm back to enriching myself. I apologize, but I love this book. Supergirl is. I've always wanted this book because when I was getting into comics 20 years ago, when I was reading your thing, you and probably around comics were like, how do I get other people into comics? And you're like, there are 2 trades that everyone recommended. It was the Why the Last Man Volume 1. It was Fables Volume 1. And which I gave to my wife, and she loved them and read the entire runs. And I've given, and those have always been trades that you could be like, you don't have to be a comic fan. Read these, you'll like them. And I've always wanted one of those with my name on it because I'm an arrogant motherfucker. And I am happy to report and relieved to report that having done a lot of cons, I now have one. Supergirl is a book you can give to a fan someone who's never read comics, the same way you gave them Why, the same way you give them Fables. It's a complete story. It's contained. They understand why it's important because it's going to be a movie, so it makes them feel. So it's a great gift for all us nerds who want to buy things for people who are not nerds to read. And you can get the cheaper version. It's a wonderful little trade, or you can get the fancy, $40 oversized version, which comes with all the extras and stuff. It's different between getting, a DVD and a Criterion collection. If you're looking for a good gift for a nerd or a non-nerd, Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. In terms of my catalog and what I've done over the decade, that's the one I would recommend. I can't tell you how many cons it just flows because of the James Gunn of it all. And every time it goes out there, I get people who are just like, I never read a comic before, and this draws me in. So I'm super happy with it.
Greg McKeon, interesting question. Some of my favorite stories you've written are your 8 and 12 page one shots. I have 2 pages of Superman red and blue on my wall. Can you tease
how dare you? I wish I had some on my wall. God damn, that's beautiful art.
Can you tease any upcoming 8 or 12 page stories from you on the horizon?
Oh, I mean, I love writing those little short stories. I mean, I can tease. We just did Kari Randolph, who I worked with a long time ago on Robin War when I first started my career, has been doing some backups in Wonder Woman. So I just did an 8-pager in the most recent Wonder Woman, which John referenced earlier, which is sort of a heartbreaker about Steve Trevor and sort of his experiences in heaven, which I really enjoyed. And then Kari and I are doing another one in the backup to 16, the Wonder Woman that we talked about at length with the Peter Falk of it all. But the backup in that one was a very fun thing to do, where I did Jimmy Olsen on TikTok with Kari. Jimmy Olsen as you see Jimmy Olsen's TikTok feed. I modeled it a little bit after the young woman who. The YouTuber who did the 4-hour review of the Star Wars Hotel. If you haven't seen that, it's an experience, and she's an incredibly talented broadcaster. And so, but it's very fun, and it's a bizarre format to do what would a Jimmy Olsen TikTok be, and it's super funny and silly and yet cool, and a different way to do comics, which I'm always looking to do. So yeah, there's one coming up. Beyond that, I'm doing the opposite of what's to do, where I've been doing these 8-page backups with the Trinities in Wonder Woman, and we are expanding those to 24 pages, Belen and I, for a 6-part series.
Wow.
If you basically liked what those were, see if I can go the opposite direction and turn sort of an 8-page joke into a 24-page story. It's a challenge, but I hope I'm up to it.
So this is a future story with the Legacy Trinity, correct?
Yes, yeah, we're doing. Belen and I are doing. Belen Ortega, who does the backups, are doing in that style with that comedy. With the comedy always has a heart element to it, and it'll make you laugh and it'll make you cry and it'll make you go, "Ooh, that's really cute." But in that style, I told DC's like, we want to do a Trinity series, and I was like, I'll do it, but it's gonna be silly. It's gonna be Calvin, at the Calvin Hobbes audience. And they said, yeah, let's do that. So yeah, so it's us teaming up for a 6-issue Trinity series that takes place in continuity, and it's teased in the back of the Trinity special that just came out, so it's always been announced. But basically, what you see is the Trinity unites as a Trinity, and so you have all three. You have the 6-year-old Lizzie, who we call Wonder Robin. We have because she has this Wonder Robin costume with a tutu, which is amazing. And Wonder Girl, the 13-year-old, and then you have the 19-year-old who's Trinity, and it's the 3 of them teaming up on a secret mission.
Very cool.
Which is obviously I'm playing with time travel because it's hard to team up someone else. And of course, for anyone who doesn't know, John and I again are old nerds. This is all a tribute to the very bizarre comics of Wonder Woman in the 50s, when there were 3 different versions of Wonder Woman. There was baby Wonder Woman, there was toddler Wonder Woman, teenage Wonder Woman, and regular Wonder Woman. And occasionally they would all team up in these what-if stories. And that's how Donna Troy got born, because Bob Haney didn't read the comics and just saw, oh, Wonder Woman has a teenage partner, and didn't realize it was a what-if time travel story. And that's why, to this day, Donna Troy has fucked up continuity. So all of this is sort of a deep tribute to us old nerds.
That's excellent. I used to love when they would call baby Wonder Woman Wonder Tot.
Yes, Wonder Tot. That's right.
So Cosmo has a good question for you, and I've got an answer, and he's asking both of us. For John and Tom, I really respect what both of you guys do. Would you all be willing to share any words that you live by for a confused college student / amateur writer?
Oh, where's that? Yeah, I'll share the words. I mean, I have children, so I got this from my grandmother, and I'll tell a story about it. She never said this, but this is how she lived. My grandmother was half. My dad left when I was early. This is actually his mother, because my mother's parents were gone, had died early. So I was half raised by my paternal grandmother, who was just a saint in my life. You know, she'd gone through the Depression, she'd gone through World War II. She was one of the greatest generation, and she was when she was. She told this great story when she was, 9 years old. She was on a horse. She was from rural Nebraska, and she was on a horse going to school because she had to ride a horse to school. And the horse bucked at a snail or a rock and threw her over, and she hurt her back. And for her whole life, she had a humpback. So she had to kind of live with the consequences of the pain of that. And she lived to be 92. She was tough as fucking nails. And she had what I would say with my grandmother sort of made her different than other people in my life was she focused on the solution, not the problem. What does that mean? Focus on the solution, not the problem. I think sometimes in life, you're going to get down and you're going to do this sort of anxiety spin where you're like, this is fucking terrible. This is fucking terrible. And instead of sort of being like, all right, we'll stop worrying and stop being crazy about that. It doesn't help. Focus on how to make it better. Focus on how to get out of this. The example I always use, my mother was the exact opposite. My mother, she was a very nice woman, but she was a very panicky Jewish mother. My mother was once throwing a party at our house in Los Angeles, and she invited all of her relatives over, which meant she was in a frantic panic to impress them. And she was cooking burgers on her brand new grill that she had sort of bought for everyone. And the grill broke halfway through. And to my mother, this might as well have been, like 30 people got shot on her lawn. She was just like, I've invited everyone over. My grill broke. I have all these burgers going on. And she was in an utter panic, yelling and screaming at my brother and I. And I looked over and my grandmother went to the grill and she started flipping the burgers. Because there was still heat on the grill. The grill was broken, but there was still heat. And so my grandma just started flipping the burgers. And I just think of that moment over and over again in my life is the difference between panicking at a situation, throwing yourself under, and just my grandmother just quietly being like flipping the burgers, focusing on the solution, not the problem. So I would put that into your life as good words. That's a long fucking answer. Sorry.
No, that was a great answer, actually. And I would add to that and say, and this is because truly, every now and then I get the opportunity to talk to college students and stuff. And you'll forgive me, Cosmo, but I don't know. I hope that among your classes you are taking writing classes. But your college leaders, listen. I want you to have fun at college. And college is a great experience. It really, again, now I've really become an old man saying stuff like that. But it is some of the best years of my life. In fact, I'm hanging out with my college friends on Friday to celebrate my birthday.
You said they were high school friends. What the hell's going on here?
Well, I don't get rid of friends.
Continuity. I want a no prize here.
I don't get rid of friends, and they've got the perspective to kind of talk to me about my choices, both in my creative choices and just life choices, and I always appreciate their counsel. But what I was going to say is, I know from when I was at school, the equipment that I had to afford me the ability to do the media that I do, I really took full advantage of the equipment that was there at college. And I would say the same thing if you're taking writing classes. You got to, I'm sure you've heard a million times, you got to learn your craft, be able to, because then you can start breaking some of the conventions. But I really think, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this, Tom, to expand you in what I'm about to say. We're at a really interesting point when it comes to storytelling, where the way that we're getting stories are changing dramatically. And we've mentioned before Jimmy Olsen having a TikTok and stuff. Not only has the attention span decreased in some cases of younger people, but also some smart creative content people are making content that is built for that 1 minute audience. And so I think there's an opportunity that is on the horizon still to tell sophisticated stories in smaller chunks. In fact, Quibi that we all made fun of 8 years ago when it came out, their timing was off. And maybe if they had thought of Quibi now and adopted more TikTok themes to the content they were making, because they were making essentially things that were 9 minutes long each chapter. And I was mocking them and saying, hey, congratulations, you just created YouTube from 2009. I don't think you really innovated here. You're going backwards. But again, society and the changes since then have proven me wrong, where it's like, okay, I was just talking about this with Joe Casey last week, because Joe's a great guy that, story tells in a bunch of different platforms and stuff. But yeah, so my point again is this is really an exciting time. to be aware of, get your craft straight, and keep writing, as Tom said earlier, and don't be frustrated by writer's block. Just keep going, man. And if you need the break, as you've heard on A Million Word Balloons, Brian Bendis goes out for a bike ride and just kind of throws away whatever the current problem is and tries to relax his brain so that the new ideas will come in. And I'm a big believer in that as well. So those are my things. But what do you think of the storytelling thing that I'm talking about, Tom? You can say I'm full of shit if you want. Feel free.
I mean, I think you're right, but I would just add that you're always right. It's always there's always new ways to tell stories. I feel like every generation has this advantage, and you got to find your way to do it. But I mean, I'm sure after Gutenberg put his Bible out, they're like, holy shit, man, we're gonna write some fucking masterpiece. Like, it's the same thing. It's just always happening. It's a rolling revolution. That each generation has to kind of deal with its stuff.
I'm not writing on cave walls anymore. That's it.
Well, I'm old school, but it does seem, Barnes and Noble just announced they're focusing on books and opening 100 new stores or something. So I wouldn't give up on the printed word, on the novel,
not at all.
Graphic novel yet. I think we're gonna do good.
I just think alongside of established mediums, we are going to see other ways. Just like, as you know, and you know that I'm the big old time radio nerd and stuff. I mean, the modern audio dramas that are coming out right now are incredibly good. They're well written. They're well acted.
Yeah.
Come on. They're amazing. So that's what I'm saying. But again, they haven't replaced traditional half hour or hour long television or films and things like that. No, I really think it's going to be alongside these things, and there's just going to be more opportunities. But I also think, there's just again, I think the newer platforms are going to afford themselves. I mean, good Lord, I am taking my interviews and finally making YouTube shorts and Instagram shorts and even TikTok, just to kind of hopefully draw people to the longer interviews. But they are succeeding, and I am getting new subscribers on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, because I'm dropping this stuff there and everything. And that's great. I mean, however you want to consume it, I just want to let people know that good conversation is happening here on Word Balloon. Come check it out. And if it's only a minute, that's all you got time for, fine. Here's a great minute. If you want to hear 2 hours of me and Tom King talking, great. It's here. So there you go. Are you tired? Do you want to wrap?
No, I mean, we can wrap. We can go a little longer.
If you don't mind, I wouldn't mind going a little longer, because we haven't gotten. Absolutely. It is still my birthday for 45 minutes here in my time zone, and certainly the West Coast did still have two more hours of Sandra's birthday, 2.5, 2 hours and change.
How exciting!
I was going to say on Turner, man, last month was cool. They were doing Michael Powell and I forget
Pressburger.
Those collaborations. The Archers production company that made A Matter of Life and Death, which is one of the great fantasy films in the 40s.
If you're a writer, the opening 10 minutes of them, I mean, the whole thing is brilliant, but just the opening 10 minutes, if you're even a filmmaker, because it takes place in, it's, oh God, what's his, he's like
David Niven.
Dapper, David Niven, who wrote an incredible memoir, if you haven't read it. It's
two of them.
And they're not on Audible. Can I just, since we're just dreamcasting here, can someone fucking put David Niven's memoirs on Audible so I can listen to some sophisticated British guy read about his life? David Niven had a horrible tragedy, like with his wife falling down in the stairs and that whole thing that happened.
Well, and even his own personal tragedy, he lost the ability to speak for a year or two before he passed away. And so if you watch him in those terrible Ted Waz Pink Panther sequels after Peter Sellers died, his character, the Phantom, the jewel thief, comes back, and Rich Little had to imitate David Niven's voice for the audio in the film. Niven performed, but he had no voice and everything. So Rich Little was brought in. But I love David Niven.
Is a movie is Bachelor Mother with Ginger Rogers. He's done much tougher roles, but it's one of the best romantic comedies of all time, and it's a Christmas movie, so it's a perfect time to endorse it.
He also, if you love Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with bloody Michael Caine and Steve Martin, Brando and David Niven did the same movie in the 60s. It's called Bedtime Story, and Shirley Jones is the Glenn Headley woman con woman.
Imagine how much drinking was happening on set for it.
And it's interesting to. I mean,
sober.
The Michael Caine Steve Martin movie is funnier, but it isn't. The 60s movie is really interesting to watch because it is the same story, and it's Brando in the Steve Martin role, and it's David Niven in the Michael Caine sophisticated role and stuff, and it's really interesting to watch.
How did we get on this? Why are we talking about David? Oh, because we were talking about Pressburger.
So yeah, A Matter of Life and Death. The opening scene.
David Niven is in a plane and he's gonna die because there are no more parachutes. He's giving away all his parachutes.
It's World War II. Yeah.
It's World War II. And he calls up the operator just to have a conversation with her before he jumps to his death. He's gonna
at ground control.
At ground control. Because his plane is gonna crash in the ocean. He doesn't want to die that day, so he's gonna jump out of a plane without a parachute. And they have a 10-minute conversation. And it's probably not even 10 minutes, it's probably 8 minutes. And in those 8 minutes, these two people fall madly in love. The audience entirely buys it, knows that these two people must be together for the rest of this movie. They meet at the beginning. The first sentence they say to each other, they're never in the same space. And he's about to die, and she's just a random person. And by the end of it, you're like, I need these two people to be together for the rest of the time. Like, and they do that in 8 fucking minutes in two different. And the sets are just like, she's sitting in a corner. And he's in a fake plane thing, and it's just cut back and forth. And if you look at a writer and you can't write better than that. Those first 8 minutes, you just can't.
You know, I think that closing scene with Peggy Carter and Captain America in the first Avenger movie is almost an homage to that opening scene,
for sure.
Because it really has that vibe to it, and it's Kim Hunter as the woman.
Oh yes, Kim Hunter.
Dr. Zira from the original Planet of the Apes.
Yes, Kim Hunter's in quite a few Pressburger films.
And, of course, her wonderful turn in Columbo with Ross Martin. First season Columbo and stuff. Yeah, I'm a big Kim Hunter fan. But, yeah, it's an incredible film, and all their films were amazing.
My favorite film of theirs is the the Life and Times of Colonel Blimp.
Colonel Blimp, great movie.
That would be the top of it. And what's great about that movie is it's like this old guy who's tired and boring and silly, and then he's like, you don't know why I'm tired and bored, silly, and then he sort of tells his life story, and by the end, you're like, everything that's tired and bored and silly makes this guy a badass. Like he's like, I have a stupid mustache. Ask me why I have a stupid mustache. It turns out he was in war and had his whole lip cut up, and he just has it to card the scars.
The scars.
Yeah, and it's a very cool story.
Yep, I agree. And no, that was all fascinating. I just saw on HBO the Yacht Rock documentary, which
everyone's talking about this Yacht Rock documentary. I think it's on Netflix. I don't think it's HBO.
It is HBO.
It's HBO.
It dropped on regular HBO and it's on Max.
Oh.
It's great. It's great.
Everyone says this. I talked to my son is a huge music fan. That's all he does, listen to music all day long. I was like, do you want to watch this Yacht Rock documentary with me? And he's like, Dad, that sounds like the dumbest thing of all time.
I get it.
No, everyone says it's amazing for music fans.
Well, and if you don't know, you can easily classify it as wuss rock from the late 70s through the 80s. But the reality is a lot of great music was made back then. And also, as someone who people know that I have a radio background, before I got into sports radio and interviews, I worked for several years at a soft rock station that played yacht rock when it was brand new.
I didn't know that.
Absolutely. And further, even though it was a small market, it was Bloomington, Illinois, part of the Peoria market. Our station was chosen to be part of Radio and Record Magazine's top 30 adult contemporary chart every week. So our playlists were figuring into what song was going to be number one on this adult contemporary top 30 chart that was weekly.
Oh, you have
and so I was playing with all this music literally as it was coming out. And it's great. Everybody is in it that should be in it. Michael McDonald, Kenny Loggins, Toto, Christopher Cross. And it's fantastic. It really is. And I know that yacht rock, the phrase was coined by these comedians and was kind of making fun of the music. But to their credit, they are the through line for this documentary. And they really respect the music and are like, no, this is a significant genre that was influenced by R&B and other influences when it started. And then they paid it forward. And you think of songs like, and I'm going to get it, is it Regulate, a Warren G's hip hop song?
You think I know?
that uses well, they use the bass line from Michael McDonald's song "I Keep Forgetting," and it's this fantastic hip hop song called "Regulate" that Warren G did. And it's like, as I said about a lot of hip hop songs that used good riffs from other established songs, it's like, yeah, no shit, Bootylicious is like a hit song. They're using the guitar from Edge of 17 from Stevie Nicks 15 years earlier. Of course, it's a popular song.
I cannot wait to watch documentaries. It's on the top of my list.
So those were really great.
It does amazing documentaries. That company's. I just watched the wrestling one and I really enjoyed it, Mr. McMahon.
Yes, that is a good one on Netflix. And Disney, beyond the Beatles 64, I know earlier this year they have a Beach Boys documentary that I'm going to have to sit down and watch that I haven't watched yet. But and also the other night on Turner, they did a night in noir, and Eddie. Our dear friend Eddie Muller was hosting.
I watched the whole thing, John. And I've seen all those movies 1,000 times.
I still haven't sat down. I got it DVR'd. Mask of Demetrius, the Sidney Greenstreet Peter Lorre movie. With
good. Peter Lorre is the romantic lead, which you wouldn't. He gets every once in a while, and you're like, wow, Peter Lorre can play the. Yeah, he's like the cool lead. The Mask of Demetrius is great with Zachary Scott.
Zachary Scott, absolutely, man.
His debut. Zachary Scott was kind of like a poor man's Clark Gable, like a more desperate Clark Gable. And
that's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. I hear what you're saying. That's very interesting.
Well, they both have the thin mustache and the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or maybe an American David Niven, if you want to do it that way.
Absolutely. Tom, we did it again. We managed to talk for more than 2 hours about a lot of cool stuff, including your fine books.
Right.
And again, everybody, if you're not reading Wonder Woman, issue 15 starts the new arc, Fury, and it's out now. It just came out right before the week before Thanksgiving, and issue 16 is coming up. And again, as we said, the aforementioned Detective Chimp playing a significant role. I don't mean to bother you.
Come on. I need this Backdoor pilot to work. I can bring this series to launch. We're going to get a Detective Chimp series, and it's going to be the new Human Target. It's going to
Come on, man. That's what we want. Oh, Synchro, thank you. Happy birthday, John. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Birthday. And thank you, everybody, for the nice birthday wishes. This really, it's as I say, every year I feel like George Bailey because of social media, where I have hundreds of great birthday wishes.
And you hundreds of people who are wishing John Suntress happy birthday, he's got a Patreon. Give him $1 a month. Give him $3 a month. What's it going to cost you? A cup of coffee a month? Come on, join him. That's what I do. I'm on it.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Closing up. You want to wish John a happy birthday? What better way to do it than that? We all just canceled our newspaper subscriptions. We got some extra money.
Here you go. And I'm proud to say that I do offer hours of distraction from the world being on fire. So I think that is another strong where we really need that. And also,
it's a tough time out there, and a lot of people I know are going to comics for relief, and I can't tell you what a joy comics are and what a joy it is listening to your podcast. And so say happy birthday to John by going and clicking that button and give him those $3. Come on, $3.
Thank you, buddy. No, I appreciate that. And also, everybody, make sure you grab Best of the Best, the Black Canary miniseries with Ryan Sook that Tom is just getting started. This is the first issue. It is out now, but issue 2, right there, the cover and everything. And yeah, man, again, so much great stuff happening in this book. It really is. It's something. Oh, Synchro says, congratulations on hitting 30, John. Yeah, times 2. So, yeah, the big 6-0, kids. Holy shit.
Oh, my God, you're 30 now. You look good for 30.
Yeah, not bad. At least I got mostly black hair. I got the Reed Richards.
Go fuck yourself with your hair. What is? Look at this thing.
I know. I'm sorry, buddy. I know. I feel bad.
I was looking at Tom Brady over this Thanksgiving. He's got those hair plugs. They look pretty good.
Wow. Because Urlacher did that as well. And Urlacher's looks reasonably natural now. So,
Biden's got him. You ever see Biden in the 90s? Biden's a bald-ass man.
Oh, yeah. No.
His look real good, too.
Exactly.
So maybe it's time. Maybe it's time.
That's hilarious. No, God, would you really consider something like that?
Do you think I got so many deadlines? Do you think I have time to get people to stick things in my goddamn hair? Joe Buck.
Oh, my God. You're killing me, man. Outstanding. Well, everybody, thanks a lot for watching today. I'm going to take tomorrow night off because I'm going to hang out with my high school friends, like I said. But Wednesday, I am proud to say Shelley Bond is going to be back. She's got a new Kickstarter coming up. as she's telling her.
Shelley Bond gave me a big break early in my career, gave me Sheriff of Babylon. So please support her.
Come on. No, I really, it's been a delight becoming good friends with Shelley over the years. And that's cool. Oh, Yusef says the bald head looks good, Tom.
Hell yeah.
So Yusef's with you.
I've had it since I was 30, legitimately 30, so I'm used to it by now. It's. I think might look weird the other way.
No, you look good, man.
I hated having hair. It was too hard.
You look like John Locke from Lost. That was meant to be a compliment.
I'm going to tell Damon you said that. We'll see how it goes.
So, this is what's coming up on Word Balloon this week, and probably a few more surprises as we usher in December. I'm lining the people up, everybody. Don't worry. We're going to have a lot of fun this month with a lot of great conversation. I hope you'll be here to join us. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.